and welcome to the Actual Tech Media Megacast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information to cover with you. Let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. Now, if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Also, keep in mind that if you have any tech issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you. So throughout today's Megacast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all of your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. And if we do not get to your question during the webinar, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us today will be following up with you after we wrap. All right, next up on our tour, there are going to be lots of cool aha moments in the Megacast today, and if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's Megacast will automatically get added to your post. And our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the Handouts tab for some resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection of solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. And if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes we will be giving away throughout the Megacast today. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. You do need to be in attendance here live at the webinar in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all winners after we wrap the Megacast today. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, hey, if you're not sure what those are, no problem. You can find the full T's and C's in that Handouts tab. Again, just click into the Handouts section, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember here today is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. In today's Megacast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all the questions asked after the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about winning, and we will get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the Megacast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going. So let's connect on social. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content right away after we wrap, you want to jump right in, make sure that you subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and to grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you're going to find a link to do that right there in that Handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected after we wrap today. Now, both you and your coworker, your friend, could win a prize, and we actually hold those drawings every month. So be sure you refer somebody awesome before you head out today. It could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your Handouts tab and fill out the application. Then the Actual Tech crew will match you with some vendors that we think you should be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you can choose to join in, like surveys or test running new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you will learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker in your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, how to prevent and recover. The site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. So go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books are going to work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and they are completely free, super easy. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in the handouts tab as well. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get rolling.
Alrighty, hello and welcome, folks. It is shaping up to be a fantastic megacast today here as we explore the topic ransomware, best practices for prevention, mitigation, and recovery. Frankly, I'm super excited for today. Every organization, big or small, is facing an exponential need for securing their technology, their data, and their people. Ransomware attacks, data breaches are on the rise, and bad actors are increasingly more creative. So we can't simply hope that we won't suffer an attack. We need to be proactive and ever evolving in our approach to security. You definitely do not want to be caught off guard. That is why every organization should be thinking about ransomware prevention, mitigation, and recovery. However, do not fret. As creative as bad actors are, so are those who are looking to fight ransomware and help secure your data. Today, we'll be diving down the rabbit hole of all things ransomware, and you will leave equipped with the tools to take this challenge head on. I'm thrilled to see 6 incredible teams presenting today. We have top experts in the field of ransomware from SpyCloud, KnowBe4, Veeam, Commvault, Druva, and Rubrik. All of that in addition to our talented keynote speaker, Melissa Palmer, who is going to be setting the stage for today. I know you are all ready and pumped up to begin, and we will having a boatload of information to cover today. So let's get things rolling with just a few last little bits of info, and then I'll have our speakers on out here with us. My name is Mackenzie Puttasi. I am a moderator here at Actual Tech Media, and I also have my friends and fellow moderators, Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward here in the wings on live chat today. And in more exciting news, we also have some prizes coming down the pipeline today. You could be the lucky winner of one of 10 Power Beats Pro, as well as we have $300 Amazon gift cards being given out every 30 minutes. So super exciting. Lots to look forward to other than just incredibly valuable information, which of course, I'm sure that's why you're here first and foremost. If you have any questions about those prize giveaways, you can find the full T's and C's in the handouts tab. Now, there are also a $50 prize, a $50 Amazon gift card being given out for each session for the best question asked. So make sure you are sending in your questions and you're active in the chat today. If you haven't yet found that questions tab, why don't you hop over there now and send that energy and excitement around to the fellow attendees with a big hi, hello, howdy, hola, aloha, bonjour, or whatever greeting you have in your back pocket that you want to share with everyone. You may need to expand the questions and handouts window to see it more clearly, but I'm seeing some activity there, so hello. Thanks for saying hi. Nice. And with that, I think we are pretty much ready to rock. I'm so excited to have our incredibly talented Melissa Palmer as the keynote speaker. She is a technology analyst and a VMware certified design expert. Melissa, always a joy to hear you. Thanks for being here today. I'm going to kick things over to you and let you set the stage for today's megacast. The floor is yours.
Today we have a great event planned for you on ransomware. We're going to focus on best practices for prevention, mitigation, and recovery, which are really all pretty connected at the end of the day. Now, before we get started with some amazing presentations, I want to take a couple minutes just to set the stage and put us all in the right frame of mind for getting ready for ransomware. Unfortunately, it isn't if your organization is hit by ransomware, but at this point, it's pretty much when. That means the next natural question that comes to mind is how can we prevent this from even happening in the first place, right? If we look at how threat actors get in, there's two main targets, our people and our system. When it comes to our people, the best thing we can do is to train our users. We really want them to understand things like what a phishing attack looks like and understand core policies like multi-factor authentication, which is table stakes these days, right? But our users should know how they authenticate and not to deviate. For example, if our users use an authentication app, they need to be trained that they should not respond to a text message that seems like it wants them to authenticate. And that's really still part of education. Now, what if a threat actor does get past our users? Then we need to be ready, right? Identity management is crucial these days. And if I could throw out a couple things that would have the most impact, it would be having a solid identity management platform, among with a couple other things like the principle of least privilege. So if someone does get bad, someone's credentials, uh, every user should only be able to do what they need to do their job, right? If I'm in the finance department, I shouldn't be able to log into the vSphere environment. That's just a big, big no, which kind of also ties to zero trust architecture, right? We want to make sure that we are re-authenticating and re-verifying our users as they progress through our infrastructure to really try to stop those threat actors in their tracks. And we want to make sure that we can always respond to a threat. Now, uh, another way that these bad guys get in is, of course, vulnerabilities. And this means paying attention to the systems and software of our environment and making sure we're applying security patches as soon as possible after their release. Now, with the rise of these zero-day exploits that we see all the time, this can mean some really, really significant changes in our day-to-day operations. But they're really important because we always need to make sure that we are ready to respond to a threat at a moment's notice. Now, patching is actually a really good segue into our next topic, which is mitigation, because patching really falls under both prevention and mitigation, right? So if that threat actor does get in, we want to be able to mitigate that situation as soon as possible. Now, I know everybody watching is probably feeling that ransomware is a little bit of a buzzword, but I want to throw another buzzword out there today, and that is AI. And there might still be some AI skeptics out there. I'm a bit of a skeptic myself, but there are some use cases where AI is just going to do so much better than a human trying to figure things out, right? So a lot of things can be done with AI for threat mitigation. And one of the coolest things I think is that AI can help us determine when are users acting funny, right? For example, if someone from finance is trying to get into the backup system at 3 a.m., that's a pretty good indicator that something's going on, right? And this would allow us to quickly respond to that threat. In this case, if it was my organization, I would be acting first and asking questions later. So immediately disabling users when they do something completely out of character. And then it would be up to the user to contact their organization and vet themselves before they get access again. That's a really good way to kind of mitigate the threat of ransomware once we know a threat actor is inside. Now, a lot of this AI stuff is really a form and an evolution of monitoring our environment, right? And as we know, monitoring is only good as knowing what we're looking for and responding when something is amiss. Many monitoring tools out there are adding AI components these days to really help with things like this. For example, in the case of ransomware, we know that if we see a server where the CPU is going wild and so are the disk writes, that's a really good indication that encryption might be happening. But remember, these threat actors are really advanced and they're actually working on their ransomware strains and having software releases and all the things that we might do, right, within our own organizations. So they're actually trying to be smarter and write better performing, low impact versions of their ransomware so that detection mechanism won't work and they'll be harder to detect. But you know where a really good place to look for ransomware is, and you might not even be thinking about this because I think this is often overlooked, your backups. You can't deny that if you're suddenly backing up a lot more data than you used to be, something has changed. And if something has changed, we can react fast and even make sure we're restoring clean copies with the right backup tool. And of course, this brings us to our next topic of recovery. Beyond using our backup tool as a source of intelligence, it's also there for our last line of defense, right? So the question is, what do we need to do right now today to make sure we can recover later? Well, first things first, we need to be backing up everything in our environment. And I know that's not always something we're doing this moment in time. So this is a really good opportunity to make sure that we are backing up everything so we can recover it later if we need to. And next is storing those backups in a way that threat actors can't access them. This means multiple immutable backup copies in multiple locations. If you're not familiar with the term immutability, I think you'll hear a lot more about it today. But it simply means that immutable data cannot be deleted or modified, which means it can't be encrypted and it can't be deleted by the bad guys. Because believe me, the bad guys are going to go after your backup systems and they're going to try to delete the backups first. So after we've backed everything up and we're sure we have immutable copies of our data, the next thing we need to do is actually test our recovery to make sure it actually works. We want to understand how long our recovery will take now, because if it takes too long, we have time to make changes in our environment so we can meet the needs of the business we support, right? This is why we're here in the first place, to protect our data and to protect our business. So a true ransomware recovery test will prove to our business that yes, we can recover in ransomware and we can stay online and we can meet all our business objectives and we won't lose a ton of money and we won't go out of business, right? And if we don't do it right the first time, guess what? We can do it again and again and again because we haven't been hit yet. It's a great opportunity to get everything ready in case the threat actors do get it. So let's recap. What are some of the best practices for ransomware when it comes to prevention, mitigation, and recovery? When we're talking about prevention, we want to train our users and make sure they have a good understanding of what to and not to do. We want to patch our vulnerable systems as soon as an exploit comes out and a patch is available. And this might require some changes to our operational processes as we use them today. And that also comes under mitigation, right? Again, patching those vulnerabilities as soon as they're out there, and AI analysis of what our users are doing and general monitoring of the environment so we can see when something changes and when something's happening that's not the usual. And then if all else fails, it's all about recovery. We need to make sure that all of our assets are backed up. We need multiple immutable copies of our backup data, and then we need a tried and true tested ransomware recovery plan. It's really important to remember that all of this ties together. And when you're focusing on these items, you're really building something that will keep you safer from ransomware. And if the threat actors do get in, you're ready to act. We have a great session full of technology today to help you with all of these things and more when it comes to getting ready for ransomware. No matter the size of your organization or what your requirements are, believe me, you are going to learn something actionable today that you can go back and implement right now. So let's get started. Back to you, Actual Tech Media team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. Really appreciate that. I love that kind of succinct overview of how to plan, what to look for. And definitely, yes, everyone out there in the audience today will leave with some actionable steps, and being able to take that threat of ransomware, take it head on, and be with a plan in hand. And if they don't have it set up already, you'll absolutely be able to go out there and use some of these tools, some of this technology to help you really evolve and get ahead of the curve. So super excited. We have got a poll up for you here. The poll is just asking, what is your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? So are you looking in the next kind of 6 months? You need to get something in place right away, 6 to 12, kind of a year timeline, more like a 2-year timeline, 12 to 24. Or maybe you're not sure. Maybe you're still sussing things out. You're here to see what's on the horizon, see what is available, and get a lay of the land before you make any big decisions. So that's okay too. Feel free to answer that. And then I am excited to have our first speaker out on here as well. We are going to get things started on a high note with the team from SpyCloud. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the incredible Taylor Kopuk, who is the Senior Product Marketing Manager at SpyCloud. Quick reminder, one of the best things about the MegaCast is the ability to ask a question directly to our expert presenters. So I do want to remind you all that we have a $50 Best Question gift card for each session, and I will be posing your questions to Taylor after his presentation. So please send in some mindful questions as they arise. If anything tickles your brain stem, if you will, as you listen to Taylor, make sure you take this opportunity to ask these questions. And with that, Taylor, I'm going to hand things over to you, and then I'm going to join you for Q&A. The floor is yours.
Fantastic. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Let me advance to the next slide. So I'm here from SpyCloud, and let me just advance this slide. Sorry,
Yeah.
1 second.
If it's not letting you, let me know. I can handle things on my end as well.
I'm not able to. I'm trying to
Okay.
advance the slide for the group. Okay, there we go. Great. So we're going first to tell you a bit more about SpyCloud and our thoughts on ransomware itself, but more on the ransomware prevention side. So first, I'm going to give a quick introduction to who SpyCloud is. Sorry, still can't advance the slides.
Hey Taylor, for now, maybe just give me a little, tell me when to
Sure.
click it over and we'll see if we can get that
Next
debugged
slide.
for you. Okay, perfect.
All right, well, who is SpyCloud? So we exist to disrupt cybercrime. We collect all the information that criminals have stolen about you, your organization, your employees, and primarily their digital identity. We publish this data so you can act on the stolen information before criminals can profit using your data and target on attacks primarily with ransomware. You can see we work with some of the largest companies across the globe, and we have a handful of use cases from ATO prevention, fraud prevention, but today is really our thoughts on how we help you prevent ransomware. Next slide is all about me. My name is Taylor Kopic. I'm here at SpyCloud. And before SpyCloud, for over a decade, I worked in a variety of industries, taking raw data and building actionable workflow software. I really helped business leaders know how to take this data to grow their business. And now here at SpyCloud, I'm really working with our customers to learn more about their cybersecurity challenges, what information is being stolen in the dark net, and how SpyCloud solutions can help them protect their data from being stolen and used against them. Next slide. So a brief overview of everything ransomware. I'm going to share a bit more about some of the ransomware trends we're seeing from recent market surveys and our own customer data and why these trends are trendy and how it comes back to the overall human element. We're going to share some of the riskiest entry points that we see for ransomware. Some of them probably known, but probably some new information about the hidden connection between infostealer malware and ransomware. And finally, we want you to feel confident with some actionable takeaways of how you can actually decrease your exposure and prevent ransomware. The next slide.
Right. I'm just going to give a quick refresh for your back end. Give me 5 seconds, and then I think we should have you fixed up. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, still not able to advance, but that's okay because this is the right slide. This is a view into the world of the criminal darknet data. I think before we talk more about prevention strategies, it's important to know this robust and thriving darknet economy that criminals are stealing. So each layer in this graph represents not only the value of the data being stolen, but also the level of sophistication required to even infiltrate and access this data. So up top, the more the surface level, this is more the paste bin sites that automated scrapers can grab. This information is quite low value as it's been commoditized and already used against the employees. As you move down the middle layers, more towards vetted forums and closed groups, this requires more sophistication to get access to these groups and this data because it's distributed through trusted circles as the data has been a bit more structured and cleaned up, again, making it easier to purchase and sell for these criminals. At the very bottom, this core offline groups, this is the very high value data being stolen and monetized immediately after access. So really the closer you can get to this core layer where these criminals are trading the active data, this is the more useful information you can use to prevent your organization from follow-on attacks. There we go. Okay, great. So looking at the impact of ransomware, this is still all over the news. That's still a growing risk, and it's one of the top priorities we see across all of our customers. Every year we do a large ransomware defense report survey, and the numbers shouldn't really be a shock to you. Of our surveyed organizations, at least 81% reported being infected by ransomware at least once in the past 12 months. Some even more than that. Now, we've also learned where companies are currently investing their resources to prevent ransomware, because the riskiest entry points, according to our data, shows number one is phishing and social engineering attacks, then followed by unpatched vulnerabilities. But the third one is interesting, the third party and partner connections. So each of these entry points alone are risky, but together it's a force multiplier for criminals to get access to your organization and your data. This means that security teams must focus on all of them, so beyond just training and technology improvements, but now this expands outside the core managed group of your employees. You have to include everything with your third-party vendors and contractors who have access to your network. This is often a blind spot for most security teams. And again, the industries, they're all affected. Primarily retail and technology were most hit by ransomware attacks, but there's really no shortage of these industries at threat of ransomware. So you saw the impact of ransomware, and it should be no surprise that the human element continues to be a challenge, especially because digital identities themselves are evolving. So what does that mean? Well, an identity is more than just a username and password. Each authentication layer in your network serves as a credential, broadening the possibilities where criminals can sidestep your security measures to get access. Criminals know this, and they're all over this. They're leveraging all the stolen information on the dark net to cross-reference these stolen data sets to get access. These numbers just give you an idea of the type and amount of information that criminals are stealing from these exposed data assets, and this shows a glance into what SpyCloud recaptured last year. It's just so much data, from PII to credentials to passwords and emails, and it should reshape how you think about an identity. Passwords being used across different email addresses and usernames can now be mixed and matched, and the amount of PII stolen just provides more information for criminals. To add to that, logs being siphoned from malware-infected devices now include data like IP addresses, credit card, session cookies, authentication data, and dozens of other data points. So putting that together, we feel strongly at SpyCloud that with the evolving digital identities, access is the new darknet currency. Criminals realize all the new forms of taking over accounts and inflicting targeted attacks like ransomware, and this is primarily all through access. This is a way for criminals to get more data from the organization. They're looking for other ways to steal information primarily tied to the sessions. So beyond just employees' email address and credentials, session cookies, and session tokens are ripe for criminals to get access to, knowing the value within them. Access is just one way these criminals are monetizing and then hitting organizations with ransomware. And following up a bit more about this fun slide about cookies, criminals love session cookies, and the majority of these hundreds of millions of assets we see stolen come from InfoStealer malware technology. Session hijacking itself is a next-gen threat that teams need to account for as a threat vector that leaves a door open for follow-on attacks. Criminals don't even need employee credentials. If they have a still valid authentication cookie, they can bypass most security methods, including MFA and even passkeys, to walk right into organizations and infrastructures and without raising any alarms. SpyCloud alone recaptured over 20 billion stolen cookies from malware last year, and this continues to rise, but we see a lot of organizations aren't capturing the stolen data asset, and most applications don't have a way to detect if session cookies have been stolen. I'm not going to go too deep into these, but there were quite a few high-profile attacks that all started with a cookie. A leading identity provider, a CI/CD platform, a global video game company, all start breaches through stolen cookies. One had to do with an employee syncing their corporate and personal Chrome profile, where attackers used stolen session cookies. The platform company was caught in a data breach caused by an InfoStealer malware on an employee's laptop, where SSO sessions were stolen and used for access. And on the video game company side, I think the criminal paid $10 for stolen cookies in the darknet to get access to Slack, then use social engineering tactics to raise requests to then get new tokens to get more access and more information. So just a few examples how cookies is leading to unauthorized access to take control. So the big connection we see here at SpyCloud, and the big trend, is the rise of InfoStealer malware. We see that the use of this malware has tripled the past year, and we recaptured over 340 million malware exfiltrated credentials last year alone. Why is that? This technology for InfoStealer malware is cheap. There's whole malware as a service technologies that handle the more data platform technology back in, and these stealers are highly effective at stealing useful data, and criminals see a very high ROI for buying this technology to eventually deploy ransom. So if the end goal is to help prevent ransom attacks from even happening, you need to focus really on this InfoStealer ransomware relationship. In 2023, we saw that nearly 1/3 of companies who were a victim of ransomware had an InfoStealer infection prior to being attacked. That is an incredible stat that really points clearly that we know that ransomware is a malware problem at its core. So not only are criminals stealing more data, taking over accounts, they're now getting access to session cookies and other authentication data to bypass security controls, hopefully leading more towards monetization of their routes, including ransomware. SpyCloud Labs has a massive research team that has been tracking dozens and dozens of malware families. And just want to point out a few of this specialization of these malware families. They're all going after specific access like finance or photos or social geography, because these malware technologies are just being treated like products and constantly being improved by the organizations. Zhook stands out for stealing financial information, but this technology can actually regenerate Google authentication cookies, giving more access to criminals. Luma is widely known and was one of the most popular and commonly found info stealers present when companies were actually victims of ransomware. Luma steals all sorts of information, including local password vaults, and is even trying to get browser-based 2FA information. Finally, Elusive, not surprising, it's true to its name. It's a very stealthy threat that has really been hard to both detect and mitigate. The good news, though, is it's not all bad news. We just want to kind of share our thoughts on the overall darknet economy to see what's out there, to let you know how criminals are stealing this data and some of the riskiest entry points, primarily being InfoSealer malware. But there's a path forward to really get ahead of these threats. Bear with me. There we go. So with the rise of these next-gen attacks using stolen session cookies and other authentication data, and the rise of malware, it's all about leaning to next-gen approaches to outpace criminals and prevent ransomware. To do this, we want to look at the overall big picture, to really think beyond the device and look at these digital identities as a whole, instead of just usernames and passwords, as the traditional identity perimeter is no longer enough. The three things that shift more towards the next-gen strategies is all about protecting digital identities. This comes down to really getting access to the full breadth of identity exposure data and getting this early on to detect exposures as early as possible. This helps you then prevent these targeted attacks, not just ATO and session hijacking and ransomware. You need to act on what criminals know about the identities of your employees, but now also your contractors, your customers, and your vendors, and act before they can monetize it against you. And you need that true evidence of compromise delivered as early as possible in the exposure, so that you can finally respond and effectively remediate to move fast enough using your existing security tools, your identity providers, your SIEMs and SOARs, for this automated remediation. And this comes down to really taking the actionable darknet data to make sure you can actually respond to the exposures that lead to ransomware. Looking at this a bit more in practice, this identity-focused solution, this shows how with better data, you can really continuously verify for compromise across all your employees and contractor base. You really need to check more than once to know if there is something you need to do to shut down unauthorized access. When you're only looking at the device and static information about the geography, user behavior, and the application, that's really leaving some gaps, primarily in your zero trust framework, that's only testing the validity of users when they first access the network. This leaves you open for significant risk, since every app past your IDP has its own authentication session that could be breached with active cookies and tokens. To get ahead of these criminals, you need to take that same information but augment it with information from the darknet. What do criminals know about that account? What PII, app credentials, and cookies have been stolen? And how could they use this against my infrastructure? With that detailed, timely, and actionable information, you can then continuously evaluate each user and device to make sure they're not compromised, preventing any potential follow-on targeted attacks like a ransomware. Now, moving towards the next-gen solution, it really is, again, moving beyond the device in terms of remediation and visibility. Protecting identities and all the data associated with them really needs to encompass not only where they're located or what device they're using. And the three tips here starts with the data source. As the perimeter continues to expand, the source of your data matters. Was the speed available early enough in the exposure to take action before monetization? And what was the source of the data? If you go back to the core image of the darknet layers, you want to make sure your intelligence is from that core layer because it's fresh, highly valuable to actually take action before criminals are using it against you. This data provides a visibility into exposed identities from unmanaged, undermanaged, and third-party devices, and hopefully includes credentials and session cookies to help get ahead of stolen access. This data then can be actually used within your teams. You need this data transformed before you get access to the raw data feeds so you can actually act on it. You need to look for enriched darknet data that you can actually make decisions on and not spend time just configuring and dealing with false positives and a lot of noise. Again, this action really helps you look at not just exposure data, but the overall exposure across all your applications, all your employees, and all access to your network. So that then this data you can trust, you can seamlessly integrate into the workflows and tools you're already using. This should really help you quickly fix known exposures and use automation to help with the steps. Which one last view is our view of overall ransomware prevention. Comes with, again, integrating the tools you trust, but believing at its heart that ransomware is a malware problem at its core. So preventing these ransomware attacks really needs to start with this proper and robust malware exposure remediation. Most companies and most customers out there are remediating malware infections as best as they can, but it's still incomplete since it really only looks on the physical machine itself. You still need to quarantine and wipe the device, but if you have a very generous bring your own device or have third-party users using their own devices, this falls flat. So this view more towards a post-infection malware remediation is again part of the shift away from device-centric, more towards identity-focused response that takes the growing attack surface into consideration. This helps you understand overall exposures across your vendors, your employees, to look at the overall breadth of the compromise, to detect this data and reset all the points of access, credentials, and also your web sessions to really prevent follow-on attacks like ransomware. So putting it all together, it comes down to visibility. You can't protect what you can't see, and you need to know this full attack surface even outside managed devices and employees. You need this visibility into malware exfiltrated data, including cookies and all the PII that gives criminals access. Because these next-gen threats are here. Criminals are looking for access to infiltrate your networks beyond just ATO, but now targeting to get as much money as possible via ransomware with the stolen data. And you need to think beyond the device and look at your employees' digital identities as a whole. And of course, defense is the new offense. Ransomware prevention is still the biggest priority, and it should be, but we want automation to help you actually speed up detection of compromised identities to actually act on these and shut down these entry points. So how could SpyCloud help with you? We really know the darknet economy very well, and we know all the data being stolen by criminals. Everything we collect from stolen breach, phish, malware, and other underground resources is made available before criminals can use it against you. We deliver this evidence of compromise as close to the crime as possible, already enriched, already analyzed, to act on this information. And we want you to get your hands on this information. We'd love for you to find out what criminals know about your organization, your employees, and your consumers. You can get a glimpse into your own darknet exposure on our website. We'll give you overall insights into exposed employee credentials that are in the hands of the criminals, a count of malware-infected records, insights into third-party breach records, password reuse, PII exposure, and also a count of stolen session cookies that match your domains. So we'd love for you to kind of check your own darknet exposure to better understand what criminals are stealing access to. Be on the lookout for in just a few weeks, SpyCloud will have our updated malware and ransomware defense report with updated insights and new data points from your peers, from practitioners to CISOs alike, who really share their experience navigating ransomware attacks in terms of their entry points they navigated and where they're currently prioritizing their resources for next year. And finally, we have one handout waiting for you within the chat that shows a ransomware prevention checklist. We have more information on our website, some of our thoughts on the top InfoStealer malware families on our radar, some more specific malware guides about remediation and a user response guide. We also have information about protecting against these next-gen threats in total. And of course, we have a very insightful blog and newsletter to sign up for. So that's all I have for you today. I'd love to see what questions you have about our thoughts on darknet data and ransomware prevention.
Alrighty. Yeah, we do have plenty of questions that have come in, so let's dive into it, Taylor. Great presentation, and yeah, a lot of cool stuff to think about. So, first question I have for you is, we run on Mac OS. How concerned should we be about malware?
Okay, yes, we get asked this quite a bit, where primarily Windows shops who run Active Directory are thinking more about malware and exposures. But as we track some of these new malware families, there's quite a few who focus not just on mobile devices, but also on Apple devices. So you should still be aware of the rise in malware. You should still follow the best practices for detecting compromise and exposed identities. But some of these malware families out there realize that there's a lot of information to be stolen beyond just the Windows device and Windows PC, and they're expanding to mobile and also Mac. So again, just be aware of what criminals could steal and make sure that if your Mac shop is infected, you have the proper steps to look at all the credentials stolen out there.
All right, excellent. Next question I've got for you here is from Mark. He's saying, how do you account for the risk of risky third parties or compromised vendors?
Sure. So I know not every company can really control the device or devices or personal devices that your third-party vendors and suppliers might be using. So I think it comes down to looking for, first starting with the password side, simply looking for any kind of reuse or compromise of this blending of professional and personal passwords and credentials. It's very easy to see that if there was a breach that included some passwords used by your vendors for their personal Roku type accounts, well, there's a good chance it might be reused in your corporate account, and criminals could easily see where these employees work for to perhaps try to target your account. But on the actual access side, some of the rules really apply. Make sure you know exactly what applications these vendors and suppliers have access to. Make sure that you're applying the proper patches and manage it if you can on their device. But otherwise, you can only control what credentials they have access to across your network and your applications. And making sure you have a rigorous detection process to prevent these from being reused and opening up new points for criminals.
Awesome. No, that sounds great. Great advice. Great advice. Okay, next question I've got for you. Actually, just so everyone knows, I'm going to throw up a poll here. So if you're looking for any additional information about the Spy Cloud solution, poll is there. It's kind of your wish list, your easy button. If you're looking for white papers, data sheets, demos, pricing details, just click on in there, and Spy Cloud will hand you everything you're looking for in a timely manner after today's megacast. Okay, next question from Amir. Amir's asking, does Spy Cloud offer any service that would effectively check our business darknet exposure and identify any breach exposures, either through stolen session cookies or any other malware infected authentication data within my organization?
Absolutely. I think we have such a large pulse on the darknet data. We can really understand what perhaps domains and organizations that you're managing, and we're able to provide this information in a variety of tools and integrations and workflows to really help your company know what's been exposed across the dark web. And again, on the data side, we do the enriching and the curation of the data. So if we present a record of there's been exposure across your domain, we'll tie it to as many other breach records and malware records as possible to help you know the larger extent of this compromised employee or vendor. So absolutely, we have this data, we're publishing it daily. We're letting companies know as early as possible if there is a breach or count of stolen malware data that we collected from all of our various sources.
Incredible. Daily publishing. That's awesome. Okay, next question I have here is, our team has a pretty firm BYOD, or bring your own device, policy in place, plus MFA, so our perceived risk is pretty low. Is there anything we're maybe overlooking or not thinking about properly here?
Well, it sounds like you're probably in a good spot having MFA set up and trying to manage devices where possible. So that's a good start since MFA is still one of the critical defense layers. We're not saying it's not valuable, but it's more about awareness that with the proper authentication data, criminals can bypass that. So I think it really comes down to, I think more on the visibility side of even with the devices you're managing and even with a strong MFA policy, you really need this visibility into perhaps other employees that were infected by malware across other devices that were used to access corporate networks, and really make sure that if information was stolen, what your remediation policy might be. In the case there was an infection, in the case that cookies were stolen, you want to make sure that perhaps you're not just wiping and resetting everything at once, since that has some downstream impacts for the rest of your organization and other security teams. So I think you're on the right track. I would just keep thinking a bit broad about all the ways that criminals could have tried to gain access to your system, and they're looking for more ways all the time. And just make sure that visibility is part of your game in terms of what your response might be in case there was malware infections.
Yeah. It's like, how do you bounce back, or what happens if and when that first layer of defense doesn't always work, which it sounds like it's good, but yeah, I I think the resiliency and the recovery is always an important thought too. All right, it looks like we're pushing up against time here, Taylor, but any final kind of call to action, or your proverbial mic drop moment here? Anything you'd want to leave the audience with today?
Check out our handout, but enjoy the rest of the talks. This is exciting and a very great conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate having you on and letting me pick your brain. Alrighty. As Taylor mentioned, if you haven't ventured out or over to the handouts tab yet, you absolutely should. They've got the PDF there of the ransomware prevention checklist. So definitely a nice proactive approach to combating ransomware attacks. A little 5-pager in there, easy to read, but packed with information. So definitely go check that out. And I do have our first prizes to give away. So if you've been waiting, you're excited, this is the time. Reminder, you do need to be live and present here at the MegaCast to win. And without further ado, the first $300 Amazon gift card is going out to Mark Nichols from Massachusetts. The first Power Beats Pro going out to Julie Viken from Minnesota. And another set of Power Beats Pro going to Edward Bird from West Virginia. Huge congrats, you three, and we will definitely be reaching out after today's webinar to let you know how you can claim those prizes. And with that, let's keep things zipping along on today's MegaCast. Next up in the queue is KnowBe4. Some of you may have heard from Roger A. Grimes in the past if you've been on some previous MegaCast summits or EcoCast. So welcome back, Roger. Great to have you back here. Roger is a data-driven defense evangelist that works with KnowBe4 and always entertaining. So Roger, I'm going to kick things over to you and let you take it away.
Thanks everyone for showing up for my ransomware talk called Crack the Code on Ransomware, Empowering Your Last Line of Defense. If you haven't met me before, my name is Roger Grimes. I've been doing cybersecurity for over 35 years. I've written 14 books, including one on ransomware, and over 1,400 magazine blog articles. There's some of my books, and the Ransomware Protection Playbook is the one that I wrote. That I'll be giving you. A lot of information comes out of that book, so you don't even have to buy the book. I work for KnowBe4. We are the world's largest integrated security awareness training and simulated phishing platform vendor, meaning that we try to help you not to be phished and socially engineered, which is very important because that is the most common way that ransomware gets into environments. And so I'm very proud to work for KnowBe4 and fight phishing and social engineering. Today, there's really two topics I'm going to discuss in the next 24 minutes. One is just the latest ransomware tactics. I'm not going to go over the basics of ransomware, but a little bit. Most of it's just going to be in the latest developments. And then we're going to finish the last half of just your best defenses that you can hope to use. So we'll start by looking at the latest ransomware news and tactics, kind of an update. I think everybody is aware of ransomware and just how devastating it can be. It's amazing. A company just announced that they have over $2.5 billion in damages from a single ransomware attack. So that's, I bet they wish they would have had better defenses. But something to keep in mind is that ransomware, starting in November 2019, to put an exact month on it, ransomware started doing data exfiltration. They stopped just doing locking up the data. They started to exfiltrate data and would tell the people, if you don't pay us, we're going to release your data in public to other hackers, use it against you, whatever. You better pay us, we're going to release your data. And so that started in November 2019. And over the next year or two, it just kept ramping up the percentage of ransomware attacks that exfiltrated data. Now it's 91% of every ransomware attack today includes exfiltrating your data. That means that a data backup alone doesn't help you because they're taking that data and threatening it with you. So that's something just to keep in mind, is that it is the rare ransomware attack that doesn't exfiltrate your data first and use that as part of the threat. Ransomware is killing people. This has been kind of speculated for years, again, since about 2019, kind of the first report of ransomware causing an operational interruption in a healthcare center, in a hospital, that they think possibly led to someone dying, was documented in 2019, at least according to the lawsuit. There's this woman whose newborn was born with the umbilical cord around its neck. It suffered some brain issues. And the parents said that the entire hospital was kind of in lockdown. Most of the systems weren't up. You could tell that people were distracted. And so that was a case where, I don't know how it's being settled or what the real facts are. But the parents were just, in the lawsuit saying they think that the ransomware was part of it and possibly led to their child's death. And we started to get other lawsuits that kind of said the same thing. There was another ransomware attack in Germany in 2020 that said the same thing, that somebody's care got so put off that they died. And it's frequently you'll hear in a healthcare, when a hospital system's impacted, that the patients will be diverted to further away centers. Surgeries are delayed for weeks to months. Medications, the Change Healthcare pharmacy ransomware attack led to a lot of delayed medications getting out to people because of the pharmacy information exchange attack. So literally ransomware is killing people. As a matter of fact, in aggregate, apparently, there was a report done that said that, at least in the U.S., Medicare patients, so that's your older patients in the U.S. are covered by a government program called Medicare, that normally 3 out of 100 Medicare patients die in the hospital each week. And again, that's fairly normal. They're an older population with more severe illnesses and disease and things like that. But during ransomware attacks, it goes up to 4 out of 100. So it goes up 1 patient out of 100. And they think from that data that just based upon ransomware attacks, it killed between 42 and 67 Medicare patients. So that's kind of a larger aggregate look. And I think Medicare patients are like 15 to 20% of the United States patients. So theoretically, they say if you did a study of a larger population, we're probably talking hundreds and hundreds of people that have died because of ransomware attacks on healthcare centers, and care suffers and delayed treatment and ambulance diversions and all that stuff. And all of that is certainly true. Ransomware is actually killing people. Ransomware payments exceeded $1 billion last year. So we actually had a significant decrease, about half of that in 2022. A lot of us, including myself and CISA and everything, are really hoping that we're starting to put a dent in ransomware. We're starting to identify and arrest and offer our own ransoms for ransomware makers in 2021, 2022. And it looked like we were starting to get a dent in it, but 2023 came back with a roar, and the ransomware groups are really doing it. And so far in 2024, they're getting even more money. So it's been, and kind of interesting, more victims, far more victims, ransomware victims now, less of them paying, but when they do, they pay a whole lot more. So this is another big development. Back in the early days of ransomware, in the heydays, I'd say, 2019 was kind of like the heyday of it and started to really increase then. Back then, about 70 to 90% of the victims paid the ransom. And then for a long time, from 2020 to 2022, it was really like 70%, but it started trending down. We started to see this trend down. Today, some reports say that only 13% of the victims paid the ransom. The highest figure that I can find from anybody that's publicizing the number is 28% of victims are paying the ransom. That means the vast majority of victims are not paying the ransom. So that's important there. And even, if you read statistics, even of the people that pay the ransom, of the companies that pay the ransom, many of them get up sooner, but you certainly have a whole lot of them that they still are not able to recover all of their data. I think that's a pretty high rate of the people that don't recover all the data from it. But if you do pay the ransom, so if you're in that 13 to 28% that do pay the ransom, the average ransom demand was insane in 2023. It was $20 million, the average ransom demand. And that's after it was just $1.4 million in 2022. Most people negotiate the rate downward. So the average ransomware payment, if paid, so again, that's only 13 to 28% of the people, the companies paid, was $6.5 million. And that was after it was only $335,000 in 2022. That figure blows my mind. The average ransom being paid is $6.5 million. We now routinely know of companies that are paying 20 and 30 and more millions of dollars. I think to Change Healthcare, I think I heard that I think that was them, that they paid something like $25 million. And then the guy that took the money from them ran with it and didn't split it among his other affiliates or whatever. And so the ransomware group came back and said, you owe us another 20 million or something. We're not going to release your data. So they paid and either had to pay twice or they paid once and didn't get what they thought they were going to get. In general, more people are paying more money when they do pay the ransom. You can see that it used to be that there was about a 50, years ago, just a couple of years ago, it was like a 50-50 split of ransomware victims would pay over $1 million. Today, 75% of victims pay over $1 million and only 25% don't pay less than $1 million. So that's again, of the people that are paying, it seems to be, a lot more in there. This is a big deal. Ransomware is routinely using 0 days. So that's unpublished or unpublicly known vulnerabilities. Most of the time, the vendor doesn't even know about them. And ransomware is using those 0 days. But also what I'm seeing is a lot of 1 days. And what I mean by that is the vendor will announce that there's a new vulnerability and patch available, and the ransomware attackers are using that right away and taking over dozens to hundreds of victims. So unless you can patch really, really quick in a day or two, you could be among the victims. And that really started to, rear its ugly head. And I think it was 2019 as well, with the Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities. A lot of Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities they got to release that year, and then really came to a head in 2023 with the MoveIt attacks, where that vendor or that ransomware gang that targeted the MoveIt, unpatched MoveIt vulnerabilities. That was a 0 day, and they compromised hundreds. But then in the next couple of days after even the patch was available, they were still compromising other groups, and other ransomware groups were compromising people for many, many weeks. So just be advised that you need to patch vulnerabilities that are being exploited by attackers. You need to patch ASAP. I always recommend going to the CISA known vulnerability exploits catalog. And if you've got some software or firmware that's on that list, you need to subscribe to that list so that you get daily updates about what's being added to that list. So that means it's being attacked by somebody in the wild, usually ransomware. and you need to get that patch. You can't wait 2 weeks anymore because they're going after you. Something to keep in mind, 96% of ransomware attacks attack the backup. So a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to pay the ransom because we have really good backups. Just know that most of the ransomware groups are getting to most of the backups and deleting them, corrupting them, or whatever, so that they don't work. That's really, really common. You need to make sure that that you have good backups, and that you always have at least one that is truly offline, meaning you cannot get access to it or activate it through an online console without somebody doing something physically in the real world first. Another thing people ask me about, what about AI? Is AI starting to help the ransomware gangs? For sure. It's kind of a minor thing right now. We are seeing certainly increased and more sophisticated phishing attempts. And phishing attempts are the biggest way that ransomware gets into places. And Bruce Schneier and other people, experts that were testifying at the U.S. Congress House Financial Services Subcommittee said that AI is making ransomware faster and easier to use. So it's not a big part of ransomware yet, but it is already a part of ransomware and is going to be a larger part of ransomware attacks over time. So keep that in mind. Ransomware today, the gangs are doing more things more often. They're not just encrypting the data. They're not just stealing the data. They're, sometimes using the victims' networks for crypto mining to generate Bitcoin. They're sometimes dropping off other types of malware. Sometimes they're doing business email compromise scams. They're definitely stealing passwords and credentials and things like that. But basically, the ransomware gangs are dwelling. They're not dwelling for months anymore. Typically, it's days to a few weeks. And they're taking different approaches per the victim, trying to figure out, how they can maximize the money they can get from a victim. Again, many times they'll break in and do these low-risk detection activities. They'll enumerate the environment. They'll eavesdrop an email and stuff like that. They will definitely be stealing your data and your credentials to sell or use at a later date. They, will sell your login credentials to other people, and even for your employees, their personal accounts and things like that would be stolen. I think the last password dump that I saw out there on the internet had 15 billion login names and passwords, and a lot of that was likely stolen through these malicious ransomware malware dropper events. There's a lot of password information stealing Trojans on people's desktops today. But they'll do different little things. Again, maybe they're doing crypto mining. Maybe they're sending a business email compromise scam. They identify, by eavesdropping on the network, they'll identify who is accounts payable and accounts receivable clerks. Whose email systems can they take over to send, spear phishing emails to, your business partners using an existing thread that they find in your email and stuff like that. And then after they've got as much money from you, then they go ahead, and do their encrypting ransomware, and maybe even do a distributed denial of service attack against your public website, so even it goes down. And I think eventually where we end up with is that we're going to have the good guys, AI-driven bots versus the bad guys, AI-driven bots, and the bad guy bots will look for holes and vulnerabilities and data to encrypt and steal. The good guys bots going to be a threat hunter and look to protect systems and patch systems and look for threats, and the best algorithms will win. I think that is the future, within the next 5 years probably. So knowing all of that, what can you do to protect yourself? Well, certainly know before. We have a lot of resources. We have a ransomware portal that you should check out. It's got all kinds of information in it. We have a white paper called the Ransomware Hostage Rescue Manual Guide. I've helped write that for a bunch of years. I didn't write the last update. My good friend and colleague, Eric Cron, did, but really fantastic document. It does have my step-by-step ransomware checklist in it that you should check out. I kind of pulled that from my ransomware protection playbook, and you can get it for free in the Ransomware Hostage Rescue Manual Guide. And we even have a new tool released called Breach Simulator. Remember, 96% of ransomware exfiltrates data. And if you want to find out if that would work in your environment, you can download our Breach Simulator. I'll cover that real quickly in a minute again. But that basically tries to simulate different types of data being exfiltrated by different types of ransomware. It does not include ransomware. It just simulates it. And if it works, it means that the attacker can simulate and remove data from your environment as well. But if you're trying to protect yourself against ransomware, the first thing you have to recognize is that ransomware is not really your problem, your real problem, your primary problem. It's how the ransomware got in. It's how the ransomware got admin or root or administrator. Because if you don't stop the hackers from breaking in, even if I could snap my fingers and ransomware could go away, if the way that they got in remains open, they're just going to break in and, steal passwords and credentials and steal data and install malware and that sort of stuff. If you want to stop ransomware, you got to figure out how the attackers are breaking into your environment. And here I've got a list of the 13 ways. Every single hacker and malware attack in history has been one of these 13 root access methods to get in. And they use these methods to break in and then take over the environment and start copying in their ransomware scripts and things like that. If you want to stop ransomware, you have to identify how they're getting in, what are the most likely ways that they're getting in, and then try to mitigate those. And I will tell you that the most common way they get in is social engineering, followed by unpatched software firmware. I took a look at a bunch of ransomware reports. I created a white paper you can download, but I looked at all the different ways that different vendors reported that ransomware got in there. And the most common ways you can see is social engineering. It's at least 50% of all attacks. Unpatched software is about, according to Google's Mandiant, it's about 33% of attacks today. And you'll see a lot of credential theft and stuff like that being used as well. Just know that 80–90% of credential theft comes from social engineering and phishing. So that kind of adds even more to the social engineering thing. There are some other ways they get in using USB keys or bribing people, but by far the two biggest ways are social engineering, number one, unpatched software or firmware is number two in there. And this is what I say for my money. If you want to protect yourself against ransomware attacks and really all hackers and malware, here are the 5 things that you need to be doing. And how well you pay attention to this list of 5 things and how well you follow it will be likely in determining whether or not you are or aren't a victim of ransomware. Number one, do everything you can do to mitigate social engineering. Social engineering is involved in over 50% of ransomware attacks and 70–90% of all hacker and malware attacks in general. If you want to stop hacking, you want to stop malware, you want to stop ransomware, do everything you can to fight social engineering. And I have a link there for a comprehensive anti-phishing guide that you can use. Also, make sure to patch your internet accessible software and firmware. I'm a big fan of going to CISA's Known Exploited Vulnerability Catalog, subscribing to that. And if you have software or firmware that's on that list, then you want to make sure that you have it patched quickly. You want to make sure that y'all use phishing resistant MFA whenever you can. There's a lot of MFA out there that is unfortunately very phishable. We would encourage you to try to use phishing resistant MFA. I've actually got a link in there on LinkedIn called My List of Good Strong MFA. That lists every type of MFA that I think is phishing resistant. If you can't use phishing resistant MFA, you should use regular MFA, although it's not that much better than a password. But I guess most of it's better than a password. If you do need to use a password, you will need to use passwords in today's world because MFA is not on even 2% of the world's websites and services. I would recommend you use a password manager because you want to create very strong passwords that are unique for every site and service that you use. And almost no one can do that without the help of a password manager. So you should be using a password manager. And I've got a link to my white paper on password attacks and defenses. And it's going to end by telling you to use a password manager using phishing resistant MFA. You should also teach yourself and everybody around you how to spot rogue URLs, most phishing attacks, on an email, on the web, and text to your phone come with these rogue URLs. Teach yourself and your coworkers and your family and friends how to spot these rogue URLs. I've got 2 links there. The first one goes to an article that I wrote called The 12 Most Common Rogue URL Tricks. And you can download a PDF in there that'll show you in a minute. And you can also, that second link there in blue is a 1-hour webinar on rogue URLs where I show you 50 different examples of rogue URLs and how you should spot them. And of course, for ransomware, you do still want to have a good, complete, tested, secure 3-2-1 backup. 3-2-1 means 3 means you should have the data in 3 places. 1 in the original place, 2 backups. And of your 2 backups, 1 of them should be truly offline, meaning that you or the attacker cannot get to it in an online way until somebody does something physically. And I would recommend that you have your backups protected by phishing resistant MFA as best as you can. We do have this great little webinar that you can watch, 1 hour webinar about everything you can do to prevent phishing. That's really what you need to read and do. We have a 1 hour webinar, or you can read I think it's like a 42-page ebook or something like that. You can download the white paper ebook instead. And you can always buy my book. I've got a book out called Fighting Phishing, Everything You Can Do to Fight Social Engineering and Phishing, by me and Dr. John Just, who also works at KnowBe4. It essentially is our comprehensive anti-phishing guide ebook, but with more examples and things like that. But it's essentially, if you download our free ebook, you're getting 90% of the information there. It's good stuff. Also, I tell people, if there's any one thing that I could teach anyone, it's how to spot the most common signs of phishing, and that is a message that arrives unexpectedly, no matter how it arrives, whether it's email, social engineering, a phone call, in person, website, whatever. It's an unexpected message. You were not expecting it, and it's asking you to do something you've never done before. Anytime you get an unexpected message that's asking you to do something you haven't done before, you need to verify it using an alternate safe method. Call a known good phone number, not the phone number in the email or in the text message, or go to the company or something. Call tech support, whatever it might be. But anytime you get a message that is unexpected, asking you to do something you've never done before, you need to slow down, think about it, research it before you perform the requested actions. Here's a cool little PDF that you can download and print and use and send to anyone. That talks about I think it's 22 red flags of social engineering. So it's got good signs and symptoms there that that someone might teach themselves to recognize social engineering. Have the same PDF or same type of PDF that you can download for the red flags of rogue URLs, the 12 most common types of rogue URL tricks. Again, that's a PDF file that you can print or send to other people around you. Also, our password policy to iterate it is you should use phishing resistant MFA whenever you can to protect valuable data and systems. When you can't use phishing resistant MFA, just use MFA. When you can't use MFA, you should use a password manager that makes strong passwords that are random and unique for every website and service. If you must create a password out of your head, like sometimes you can't use a password manager, like when you're logging into your device, you want to use a password that is 20 characters, really a passphrase that is 20 characters or more. And that's because hackers routinely guess 18-character passwords, but we don't know anyone in the world that has actually guessed that successfully at a 20-character password. Also, again, we've got this new cool tool called Breach SIM that you can download. It's a free tool. You can go to our resources on our website and download free cybersecurity tools and download Breach SIM, and it will demonstrate to you whether or not people can actually exfiltrate data. And we, of course, very big believers in that you should train yourself and your end users at least once a month, and you should do simulated phishing attacks at least once a month, maybe hopefully once a week. And we know that our customers that do that, our average customer comes to us with about a third of their employees that are easily phished. And once they get training and simulated phish, you can get that percentage down below 5%, and that is real security risk reduction. I know this is very quick in 24 minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at rogerg@knowbe4.com, rogerg@knowbe4.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Mastodon, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, whatever. I'm on them all. It's been a pleasure talking to you all today. Go out there and fight the good fight.
Awesome. Roger, thank you so much. I know you've been a hit with the audience in the past, and you did not fail us today. Lots of questions, lots of comments. Definitely a great presentation and great to have you here. Unfortunately for you all out there, we are kind of up against time, so we're not going to be able to have Roger sticking around for a Q&A session here. That said, any of these questions that were sent in, they will be sent over to the KnowBe4 team and Roger, and so they can reach out and follow up and make sure you get the information you're looking for. And same thing goes for the poll. There's a poll up now asking if you'd like any additional information about the KnowBe4 solution. So if you are looking to check something out, if you want pricing details, demos, you want to get a case study, see if it's something that would suit your business, your organization, you can absolutely do that. So go ahead and plunk your requests into that poll, and then we'll keep things moving along. But again, thank you to Roger. Thanks for the KnowBe4 team. And do not fret, if you did have an amazing question, you might still win a $50 Best Question gift card, even if we didn't get to ask it here today live on the MegaCast. Now, if you haven't been checking out that handouts tab quite yet, I do suggest you do that. As Roger mentioned, there is a link in there to the breach simulator from KnowBe4. Super cool, essentially able to take a look at, hey, are you set up and ready for a breach? How could you respond? Where are your weak points? And taking that data, that information would absolutely be a big help to any organization, making sure that you know exactly where your vulnerabilities are. And with that, I have got some prizes to give away. So, second $300 Amazon gift card today is going out to Brad Priller from Illinois. And then a couple more sets of the Power Beats Pro going out. First going to Ryan Kramer from Montana. And the second to Rommel Regalado from California. So huge congrats to Brad, to Ryan, to Rommel. We will definitely be reaching out after today's MegaCast to let you know how you can claim those prizes. And we've got more in the queue. So if you didn't win yet, don't worry. There's plenty of chances and opportunities still to come. So, all right. With that, why don't we keep things moving along? We've got quite a lot of information, quite a lot of people here in the queue today, our expert presenters. And again, this is a great opportunity to keep asking questions. So, next up, we have the team from Veeam here in the house. We've got Aaron Murphy. Aaron Murphy is the Field CTO of the Americas for product strategy. Always great to have Veeam in the house. And Aaron, I'm going to just let you kick things off and keep things moving. Take it away.
Aaron Murphy. I'm the Field CTO for the Americas here at Veeam. Welcome to this session, Ransomware Best Practices for Prevention, Mitigation, and Recovery. And it really is all those things. We as a company are well positioned to make recommendations here. We have for many years been helping companies with dedicated incident response services. So we kind of know what happens. We know how to prevent it. We know how to mitigate the impact of an attack. We know how to streamline recovery with all the best practices of incident response, such as containment and eradication of threats, recovering your tier 0, identity access management, all those kind of things, whether in the data center or in the cloud, we know how to do it. So we really want you to learn from our best practices rather than having to go through the cycle of learning through an event. So that's what this session is about. We're going to talk about our capabilities, but how these capabilities are aligned with best practices that we recommend. So first, a little shout out to some of the primary research that we do of all organizations. Some will be our customers, some won't. There'll be medium-sized organizations, large organizations in this. Some will have had the help of specialist security companies or have incident response retainers, others won't. And that's why you see some of these numbers. It's a real state of the global economy from a ransomware extortion kind of economy out there, right? So what we learn from a few data points here is 96%, probably all of the time, they try to attack backup repositories to remove that recovery from you, that recovery option, and that's the preferable one. That's what we want you to be able to do predictably and reliably. If you do make the payment, that's less than a third of the impact to the organization, because there's an extended recovery requirement in order to make sure that the threat actors have been contained and eradicated. So there will be downtime. Much of the data for many organizations is not recoverable. Either backups were attacked, but that's an easy one to solve, or there was data that wasn't protected. Maybe something in the cloud or a SaaS where the thought was reliability is provided, but reliability is not the same as recoverability or data protection, and that's needed too. Or sometimes there's failures in policies and procedures. New systems are implemented, new data sets added but not added into backup policies. That's a common downfall. If you do testing and you automate that testing, and then you know if it's recoverable, and you know that if you've got any gaps in your protection. And that's a recommendation we'll dig into later. And that many times someone pays the threat actor, requires a decryption key, but can still not recover the data. That could be that the data got corrupted because they took the wrong steps, such as shutting down systems while they were being encrypted, can often corrupt the files. There are ways to kind of validate that and check that ahead of time to understand the threat actor themselves and whether they often provide keys that work, and also use non-threat actor tools to do the decryption if that's the strategy that you've decided to go down. So we'll give you advice on that too. Now, as an organization with an incident response capability, we also have a database of threat actors and their tactics and things that are going on, and we keep that up to date, and we'll produce a report on that frequently. So right now what we're seeing is that 77% of ransomware attacks involve confirmed exfiltration. Sometimes they threaten it but actually haven't done it, or they try to live off the land and just steal some data from tools like Salesforce or something like that. But if we can confirm signs of data staging, connections, movement of data to the dark web, then we know it's a confirmed exfiltration attack, and then 89% involve encryption of data. So it's always good to be able to work with an organization that can give you this information about what's going on. It's, you know, to have knowledge is to be better prepared, and we can give you that in some of our services and training, knowledge of this extortion economy. Now I'm going to start this slide. I mean, it talks about compounding failures in the cyber kill chain. It's actually a good news slide. They may get in through something like malicious phishing email or remote desktop or other kind of remote access compromise, but that doesn't mean that they have to be able to extend that initial access into an all-out attack. There are plenty of opportunities to stop them, and that's really why I think it's a good news slide. If it's an opportunistic attack, which most of them are, security training didn't work, someone clicked on it, the filtering didn't work, those are some failures. However, if you're a target of choice and they really want to go for your organization or individuals in your organization, then they've got some very smart ways of tricking people, such as breaking into external email accounts of people that you regularly do business with or that you might listen to. We saw one where they came through the principal of a school where the CEO had children in that school, therefore sent an email that enticed him to click on something. So this is going to happen. These failures are going to happen at this stage, but it doesn't need to be the end of the world. What you have to ask is, once they're in that account, what can they do? Does that user have the ability to execute commands and scripting? Is PSExec allowed, one of the main tactics that they use? Shouldn't be if he doesn't need that skill set, right? Do you have behavioral EDR to look for changes in behavior and that user's behavior and what things they access and what things they do? Another way of maybe identifying an attacker in your network. Do you control which applications they can install, or can they install them themselves? Can they bring their own device? Does that allow them access everywhere? Is the multi-factor authentication enforced? Least privilege? These are all opportunities to stop the attacker. After that, do you have privilege access management for critical things that are needed that could be highly disruptive? Should an attacker get into one of those accounts? Do you segment the network to limit the impact of an attack? Or not? Do you have domain admin accounts authenticating in the production domain to do their job? Not a good idea. Something that generally leads into the kind of biggest attacks with the biggest impact. Do you have data loss prevention in place, locking down critical data to only those that need it, and making sure that the attack surface is lowered for exfiltration or meaningful exfiltration? Antivirus in place, SOC alerting and response people monitoring it correctly. If you have all those things in place, then you're less likely to allow an attacker enough time to execute a successful attack. If they do, however, the last thing that you must have is clean, recoverable backups that are protected from an attacker. We saw earlier, nearly all the time they try to attack backups, but it's not the only failure. The failure could be, are backups complete? Are they recoverable? Have I tested it? Can I clean them and eradicate the threat that things that the backup may have captured while the attack was going on, that could re-establish threat actor permanence? Do I know how to clean those? And can I do it as quickly as possible? Recovering from backup is almost always faster than paying for a key and the right outcome and less risky, but you have to be prepared for it, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, resilience is about having all these things in place, right? And we've broken them for us into kind of 5 key areas. And I'll talk just to the things that are relevant to the ransomware prevention, mitigation, and recovery. But data backup, we'll dive into that. Recovery, freedom, security, and intelligence. First off, it's important that all your workloads are protected, whether they're cloud, virtual, physical, applications, software as a service, data, and containers, where you might be deploying some of your new and latest workloads also need to be secure. So we have very, very wide coverage, and that's critical because then you've got the same method, the same tool to protect as many things as possible, and therefore the same kind of recovery processes that are well understood and known in your organization. And we've been adding a lot of workloads continually with the cloud as more people move to it and use these workloads, or different hypervisors, people looking to change their strategy there, and new applications and databases where they might be storing data for some of their latest apps. So it's critical to have this wide coverage. But let's dive into one of these 5 points, and I'll just pick on a few things. It's important to have the coverage and have the data protected, but what's more important is you have different choices in how you do data protection. It has to be aligned with that application and its importance to your organization. We recommend revisiting that. Sometimes we find that things are protected in a certain way because that's how all the technology was available at the time. We find out it's retained a certain way because that's how it's always been, but there's an opportunity to kind of streamline that. If you've got different choices in protection and recovery capabilities, such as integration with hardware snapshot for incredibly fast, massive data sets, super fast recovery, do you need that for your tier 1 applications? Are some things using capability like that don't need it? Are they okay with just fast incremental backups? What about replication? What about continuous data protection? What do you need for those workloads? We recommend talking to the whole business and starting really from the business owner of that application and working backwards. What do you actually need to not only be compliant, but what is the desired capability that you need for your business application? What would be a desirable outcome should you be attacked and then you had to recover? What kind of protection do I need? We find in other parts of our research that most of the time what the business requires and what IT are able to deliver, there's a huge gap. Nearly 3/4 say there's a gap in how frequently the data is protected and how quickly they can get back up and running. When you're answering the questions about can I use recovery as my recovery method, it's really critical to have automated and tested recoverability from backups. And that's one thing we recommend because it does 2 things. It allows you to bring a number of different systems up in a certain order, connect to the application, make sure it's recoverable. That stops anything creeping into the workflow, corruption gets spotted with automatic recovery testing. But also, if data sets are missed, if critical systems are missed, when you're testing that recoverability and is the application working, when you bring it back into, say, this isolated sandbox for doing this testing, then you can also spot other failures that might have happened in your people, policies, and procedures, and you can pick up on that. So automated recovery testing and reporting on that is a key recommendation. When it comes to recovery, it's important to have the speed, and that's based on what kind of backup that you do, but also that recovery can be integrated with the requirements of an incident response. Instant recovery is a technology we pioneered, but we use it in many automated workflows. So it's very fast, very scalable. You can get instant recovery on even on things like object storage. Dozens of machines brought back up in a minute, either then pushed into production or first put into an isolated sandbox for use with forensics or for use with automated workflows such as Secure Restore. That allows you to run latest antivirus signatures or YARA rules specific to the attack that's happened, and make sure that your backups no longer contain, or your restores no longer contain threat actor permanence tools and configurations that they may have put onto that system to allow them to maintain access. You need to be able to clean those quickly before doing recovery. So that's, again, something we recommend you look into. How do you recover cleanly and make sure that it's well practiced and well understood and as automated as possible before you need it? Freedom is that ability not to be locked in, the ability to take your backups with you, retain them, and access them at any time, whether that's something, even a SaaS backup service that we can do that with, or things that you've implemented using software as a subscription. It's important to be able to make a choice and change. It's important to be able to migrate and modernize your applications, move between Kubernetes cluster types, move from different virtualization hypervisors from one to another, to the cloud, across clouds, and back again. That flexibility means that you can always be ahead of the game when you need to take advantage of maybe cost reductions or new technology or new capabilities. As long as you've got that freedom to recover from anywhere to anywhere, then you're always in a good position to recover from a ransomware incident. Now, security, this is one of the most critical things to dig into. We said in the cyber kill chain, it's important, critically important, to have good backups that are secure, kept away from an attacker, and that have proven recovery. And we know the recovery is streamlined and integrated with incident response capabilities, and that you can clean those recoveries, right? So those are all critically important. But the most important thing is that you have those backups and they're secure, immutable, right? So a zero trust architecture that separates the backup software access from the storage access, that has integration with security tools to help you be notified of things that are going on. One thing for us is a capability where your host-based or your endpoint detection tools can detect something and flag in the Veeam software that something might be going on with this particular system. That allows you to go on with proactive threat hunting and making sure that you can validate whether those restores contain evidence of a threat actor, and you can clean them ahead of time, be better prepared, or be aware of the attack early. Capabilities in the tool itself to detect attacks too, but also immutability everywhere, and choice of immutability. It doesn't have to be that expensive. Align the system that you buy to protect the data and make it immutable to the value of the workload in your organization. I made that recommendation earlier, and I'm going to, that's why we did things such as create new APIs for things like object storage, so it runs at block speed, give you another choice of system to use for your data protection that is secure and recoverable and has all the capabilities you need, but is at a price point which makes it accessible to your organization. Data intelligence. We have AI-powered detection of ransomware attacks, either early on in an attack before encryption occurs, which is incredibly important, but also maybe at the encryption stage. It's maybe too late at that point, and then you're going to have to rely on recovery, but having the ability to know what was attacked and where it was attacked is critical. Answer your questions about how to secure an environment and configure an environment with an AI digital assistant, making it more simple to manage this system and to make sure that you're in a good state, warning you of things that may have drifted in configuration from a security perspective, or known failures with particular combinations. We continually update our software based on our database so that we can warn you ahead of time, be proactive. And then, we're going to continue to improve and expand that. And we're doing integration now with Microsoft Copilot. That will give you even better prompting. You'll be able to ask the AI assistant things that you need to know about and respond quickly. So I'm just going to kind of wrap it all up here in terms of recommendations. So we have a cybersecurity program. We think it's important to be proactive ahead of time. So that will give you training on incident response, health checks, configuration guides. You can have an incident response retainer, and there's a ransomware warranty to help you with recovery costs. It gives you setting it up based on the recommendations in the cyber secure program will allow you to be better prepared. Making sure you have the ability to detect malware in the product or with endpoint or host-based detection tools is critical. Immutable backup choice. Integrations with your SIEM, so that notable things that might show a threat actor attacking the backups or the backup software, worthy signals to be investigated, all leads to a more secure environment. YARLs that can be deployed for proactive threat hunting or for cleaning restores to make sure you've got clean, verified backups. Automating that recovery so that it's predictable and that you can know you can rely on it. That's critical. We recommend that for everyone wherever possible. I talked about our cyber incident data. That's Coveware by Veeam, a company that we acquired to even increase our capabilities. If you did need to rely on services there's forensic analysis. What got attacked? Is it recoverable? Could it be decrypted? We can help you with all those things, including all the documentation you might need for your cyber insurance or for law enforcement. So make sure you have the help of someone on an incident response retainer is one recommendation, because you're probably going to need that help in the incident response, but also learning what incident response looks like is also critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I've got a poll up here. So once again, you're starting to learn the drill, I'm sure. This is just asking what additional information you would like about the Veeam solution. And definitely, you're going to want to check out the handouts tab, because if you didn't already clue in, the Global 2024 Ransomware Trends Report cited in Aaron's presentation is there and ready for you. So super valuable resource, absolutely worth grabbing now, holding on to, taking a look at that, because that's what we're here for. We're looking at ransomware. How is this going to affect you? What's on the horizon? How can you best prepare, mitigate, and recover? So super valuable document. Definitely want to check that out. We are unfortunately not going to have Aaron sticking around for Q&A. A little bit of a tight turnaround for him today. So if you did ask some questions, which I see you did, those will be answered after the fact. The Veeam team will be reaching out. But don't fret, this is not a trend that will continue. I've got Joy up next in our queue, and she'll be sticking around for live Q&A with me. So keep those questions coming in hot. Again, great to see all the interaction. Great to see the level of interest here. Definitely a hot topic, I can tell. Now with that, let's get some more prizes coming down your way. So prizes, again, do need to go out to somebody live and present here at the webinar. So like Mir before, hopefully I see you saying, yeah, I won, as we call it these next names. So the third gift card going out for $300 from Amazon is going to Bernard Brusque from Kansas. And another set of Power Beats Pro are going out to Cameron Turner from Virginia. Huge congrats to both of you. And we will be reaching out after today's MegaCast to let you know how you can claim those prizes. And with that, let's keep things moving along. We've got the incredible team from Commvault next on the queue. Joy Ruff is the Senior Product Marketing Manager over at Commvault. And she'll be presenting on, obviously, the Commvault solution. And then I'll be joining for Q&A, as I mentioned. So super excited, Joy, to have you on. I think this is the first time we've had you. So I am really enthused to hear a new voice here in the ransomware space. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to you and let you take it away.
Senior Product Marketing Manager at Commvault. And today I will discuss how you can recover from ransomware attacks. As you already know, ransomware has evolved and changed how people and businesses deal with data protection and security. The cold truth is this: it's not a matter of if you'll have a breach, but when you detect it, what you did to prepare, and how you respond. Despite heavy investment in people, processes, and technology, ransomware is impacting the security and backup infrastructure, making it more difficult for companies to recover quickly. 75% of respondents to a recent ESG survey have experienced one or more ransomware attacks within the past 12 months, and nearly half of the organizations surveyed reported attacks occurring at least monthly last year. Recovering from ransomware is far more complex and challenging than traditional backup and disaster recovery. Criminals can linger on your networks for more than 200 days, meticulously planning for maximum impact on your businesses, and it usually takes more than 20 days on average to recover from a cyber attack. Earlier this year, Commvault collaborated with GigaOM to conduct a survey on cyber recovery readiness and resilience with 1,000 security and IT leaders. Addressing cyber recovery readiness is at the top of these leaders' minds. 83% of the responding companies have been breached, and more than half have been breached in the past year. In addition, there are many things that leaders are concerned about, the most common of which are external threats or other things outside of their control. The challenges are numerous, from sophisticated hackers using AI to outdated or incomplete cybersecurity and resilience systems and tools. One of our main learnings from this research was that there is a fundamental difference between how leaders from breached organizations feel, prepare, and act compared to leaders from unbreached organizations. What is notable and represented by this chart is that those who have been breached tend to find all the things we asked about relatively challenging compared to those who have not been breached. This suggests that you don't really know what it will take and where the problematic parts are until you've gone through it. In today's high-risk environment, addressing these gaps and challenges should be a priority, especially since many leaders admit they are unsatisfied with their current solutions. This is a great sign because it tells us that the leaders we engage with see a gap in their cyber resilience posture, and they will prioritize improvement opportunities. Many organizations are already working to implement data protection and security measures. IT and security teams are often managing dozens of security tools, and they are still being breached. In fact, some security tools may mask the breach due to the sheer amount of data being generated and thrown at teams to decipher. This model is unsustainable. So how can you assess your readiness to recover from a cyber attack? This was another major takeaway of our study. Cyber resilience is a test of fitness, meaning the more you do, the better off you are. And importantly, there isn't one silver bullet to solve for everything. But to make things more actionable, we identified these 5 practices and capabilities that have an outsized impact on resilience. We call them the cyber readiness maturity markers. And as you can expect, the more you have, ideally at least 4, if not all 5, the more mature and prepared you are to respond to a cyber incident. Let's step through each of these. First, early warning security tools are technologies and systems designed to detect potential cyber threats before they can cause significant harm. These tools aim to identify risks at the earliest possible stage, allowing organizations to respond proactively rather than reactively. Examples include intrusion detection systems, deception technology, intrusion prevention systems, security information and event management, user and entity behavior analytics, and endpoint detection and response. Second, it's important to maintain an isolated, pre-configured or dynamic recovery environment, such as a clean room, that remains unaffected by cyber incidents at the primary site. This secondary site can be quickly activated for business continuity and data integrity in a cyber attack or major failure. It enhances cyber resiliency by providing a secure failover option, minimizing downtime and complexities of failover. Third, you should maintain a separate, air-gapped, that is, immutable and indelible, copy of your data, secured behind a third party's infrastructure. The data remains unchanged and protected from cyber threats, including ransomware and malicious insider actions. It enhances data integrity and availability, providing a reliable recovery option in case of data corruption or loss. Fourth, and this is a crucial capability for a structured and efficient response to cyber incidents, Tested runbooks provide step-by-step instructions for handling various types of incidents, reducing confusion and response time. Clearly defined roles and processes ensure that every team member knows their responsibilities, promoting coordinated efforts. This preparedness speeds up recovery and helps maintain operational continuity during and after cyber events. And last but not least, establish metrics and tests that demonstrate your organization's ability to recover from cyber incidents and assess associated risks. These measures, such as regular recovery drills and risk assessments, provide insight into the effectiveness of your recovery plans and identify potential vulnerabilities. They are essential for cyber resiliency. Now, this is where things get interesting. Only 13% of the survey participants have 4 or all 5 markers in place, and fewer than half of all 1,000 IT and security leaders surveyed say they are confident in their recovery plans today. Remember, over 80% have been breached before, so this tells us that the majority that have been breached have had the opportunity to address weaknesses and gaps, but are still not confident in their ability to respond to the inevitable next breach. They need to take steps to increase their maturity in cyber resilience and readiness. Why does this matter? Because more mature organizations, those with at least 4 of these markers, are able to recover faster from a breach, reducing downtime and the associated costs incurred. The last key learning is about testing. We saw interesting trends here, most notably both more mature organizations with 4 or 5 markers and those who have experienced a breach before prioritize testing higher and practice testing and recovery exercises more regularly than those less mature and organizations that have not been breached, respectively. Testing helps you make sure you have recoverable backups and that the recoveries work as planned. In summary, these are the main takeaways from the research, which are crucial for understanding and implementing cyber readiness strategies. Cyber readiness requires a broader outlook on system and data recoverability across all of your infrastructure and processes. It's crucial to strike the right balance of people, processes, and technology. This balance approach will provide a solid foundation for your cyber readiness strategies, giving you the confidence to face any cyber threat. The 5 markers of cyber resiliency provide a useful blueprint for cyber preparedness. Applying at least 4 of them will put you in a better position to recover faster from a breach. And finally, remember that frequent testing regimens are not just essential, but serve as your proactive shield in successfully navigating a cyber attack. They will ensure that your systems are always prepared and secure. This is how you can be ready to recover from ransomware. Being ready for recovery means that your teams have the confidence and the ability to quickly recover any data across your environment, including physical servers, virtual machines, and your various cloud platforms. The ultimate goal of cyber recovery readiness is to establish a solid base of protection via preventive and detective measures to enable the ultimate defense of the isolated recovery environment with the capability to provide for a complete, clean recovery. So if you are interested in getting a copy of this report, you can download the PDF from the Commvault website via the QR code shown or through the asset link available with this event. This collaborative study offers a worldwide view into the challenges of cyber readiness postures and identifies effective strategies that you can use to enhance your recovery readiness plans. In recent years, one of the most significant issues we've identified from customers is the inability to test and ultimately recover from cyber attacks. Recovery testing in a hybrid world is expensive and complex. Data isn't just at 2 sites anymore. Your data and applications may be spread across AWS, Azure, colos, multiple on-prems, or any combination. How do you test these interdependencies across all these different environments? Are you able to run that many simultaneous simulations? Even if you have a recovery plan, are you ready to implement it? And how are you testing to be sure? Recovery from a breach is different from disaster recovery, which is designed to handle natural disasters such as hurricanes, tornadoes, or hardware failures. DR usually uses a secondary copy of data, cross-replicated between sites, but both copies may be compromised in a cyber attack. The typical DR plans will likely not apply when a breach occurs. When it comes to ransomware, it's a matter of when, not if, an organization will be impacted. Effective cyber recovery requires deep foundational security, intelligence to understand when threats are present and what data is affected, and the ability to restore extremely large amounts of data as quickly as possible. Is your data truly protected? Only Commvault protects data from production to backup. Commvault also makes a way to eliminate the expense, complexity, and general misunderstanding surrounding cyber recovery so you can test recovery plans as often as you would like and provide a feedback loop back into those recovery plans. Cyber recovery is very complex. Where disaster recovery is more structured and systematic, cyber recovery is chaotic, unorganized, and unplannable. You can't script for the unknown because each attack differs from the last. You must expect that the first layer of data protection has been compromised. The bad actors know that if you have a good copy of data you can restore from, why bother paying the ransom? The most important thing in cyber recovery is how clean the data is that you recover. You need a safe space to test and verify what you've got so you can safely restore and rebuild your infrastructure. Commvault Cloud Cleanroom Recovery provides an affordable, clean, secure, and isolated recovery environment for testing cyber recovery plans, conducting secure forensic analysis, and helping deliver uninterrupted business continuity. Ransomware is pervasive and increasingly penetrating your most valuable asset, your backup data. Commvault Cloud ensures that data is air-gapped, encrypted, immutable, and always available, with powerful security capabilities to predict and proactively fight evolving cyber threats. Let's examine how Commvault Cloud Cleanroom Recovery works. First, Cleanroom Recovery is available to anyone with the latest version of Commvault Cloud. Here's a workflow diagram for setting up your Commvault infrastructure, bursting out into a clean room in Azure, and then recovering. This process holds true regardless of whether you're using Cleanroom Recovery for readiness testing, forensic analysis, or production failover. First, let's take a look at backing up your production environment. Let's say it's a set of file servers that make up an application, along with VMs and databases. One of the best practices we embraced is that you shouldn't keep your backup data in one location. You should have multiple copies, including an off-site location. The cloud provides a modern off-site backup repository. With Commvault, you have a control plane that manages the backup process. This is configured to go to cloud.commvault.com, so your data is copied to your location in our cloud through AirGap Protect, our air-gapped immutable cloud storage. We've partnered with Microsoft Azure to deliver immutable object storage, which is very low cost and scalable. Once the data is written, it cannot be overwritten until expiration. So for ransomware, which likes to find every path and try to locate your data throughout every available network to encrypt or delete it, you now have a copy of it held in a location where it cannot be touched. From there, Commvault and Azure can recover anywhere from dissimilar systems. For instance, if you have VMware-based virtual machines on premises, you can recover them as Azure virtual machines running inside the Azure cloud. This frees you from the vendor lock-in and expense of maintaining an identical production environment at a significant cost. With Cleanroom Recovery, there are three main use cases: testing, forensic analysis, and production failover. Testing is critical for cyber recovery readiness. Only through frequent and realistic testing will you learn when to pivot and change your tactics. Cleanroom Recovery makes it possible for you to perform testing regularly, to verify defined processes, and evaluate different responses to deal with potential breaches. With forensic investigation, often after an attack, the business is ready to recover, Yet production is being held up by forensic analysis because security teams need to do more work to understand the full impact of the attack. Cleanroom recovery helps you recover your production environment while the security team conducts that forensic analysis in parallel. But another big reason to use Commvault Cloud Cleanroom Recovery is the ability to fail all or part of your production environment into a cleanroom to ensure business continuity. The ability to move all or a subset of your environment to a new data center on demand gives you another level of resilience. Cleanroom Recovery is a comprehensive approach to cyber readiness and recovery, encompassing security, standalone environments, and production, with meticulous planning, established processes, testing, air-gap data, any-to-any data portability, and well-defined procedures. The power of the technology behind Cleanroom Recovery lies in bringing these diverse elements into a cohesive and effective unit. So that is a brief introduction to Commvault Cloud Cleanroom Recovery. Our goal is to provide you with the capabilities and resources to help make you as cyber resilient as possible. Commvault has solutions to support you at various stages of the roadmap, including data protection technologies, threat detection systems, and incident response services. Integrating Commvault solutions enhances the effectiveness of the roadmap, ultimately leading to more robust cyber recovery capabilities and a better overall security posture. Please scan the QR code to request a demonstration of the Commvault Cloud Cleanroom Recovery solution. And thanks for joining. I think we have time for some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Great presentation, Joy. So awesome. I really like the imagery you guys have used as well for the clean room. I'm really vibing with it.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, yeah, we do have some questions here, so let's dive into that. First question here is from Jonas. He is asking, you mentioned developing common terminology, best practices, and maturity models for cyber recovery. How can I get access to this information, is what he asks.
Oh, yeah. Great question. We worked with GigaOM to develop these industry standards so that we all have a comprehensive maturity framework, common terminology, methodology, and best practices to lean on. We've also built assessments and consulting services to help customers harden their environments and improve recovery readiness to create cyber recovery plans. So you can run tabletop exercises and then take that data into a clean room. I encourage you to visit commvault.com to learn more and request a demonstration or trial of clean room recovery so you can see it in action.
Nice. And is that just kind of base included in what Commvault provides, or is the consulting something above and beyond as like new users will come on board?
Right. Professional services to help do additional white glove support is an additional service and charge. But the Commvault Cloud includes the clean room recovery. Anyone who has Commvault Cloud gets access to clean room recovery.
Okay, awesome. Well, on the topic of clean room recovery, I've got a question about that. This question is, for clean room recovery, how often can I run these tests? Are there any limits to the testing?
Well, one of the great things about clean room recovery is that you can test as many times as you want. You only pay for what you use while you're using it, so it's not a massive expense. And it is totally at your discretion how frequently and for how long you run those tests. So remember, testing ensures resilience and business continuity. And also, it's an industry standard recommendation that backups of data are conducted, protected, maintained, and tested, because it is better to identify an unexpected issue during testing than during an actual cyber incident.
Oof, definitely second that. Okay, next question I've got for you is, do we need to consider SaaS protection as well? Isn't it already protected?
Yes. Despite the continued adoption of SaaS apps, there's a growing disconnect around who is responsible for protecting the data living within them. Many organizations believe cloud service providers are responsible for administering their applications and safeguarding their data, and that is wrong. The SaaS shared responsibility model is crucial in cloud security. It divides responsibilities between cloud providers and customers, for securing data and applications. Providers secure the infrastructure while customers safeguard their data. This model ensures clarity and accountability, and data experts emphasize the importance of a proactive data security strategy. Leading providers recommend implementing third-party solutions like Commvault to help with that. It is important to note that cloud providers have different approaches to securing their customers' data, so their responsibilities may vary significantly. So even though cloud providers are responsible for providing and offering secure environments and tools, there is no guarantee that customer data will remain private or secure if companies fail to implement best practices such as access control, encryption, and other measures. So be sure you understand each provider's responsibilities to select the most suitable partner.
Read the fine print, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Well, I think that's about time for today, but any sort of final call to action or anything you'd like to leave the audience with, or if people are looking to get started right away, I know we've got those QRs up there for the report download as well as requesting a demo.
Yes.
Is that the best place to go, or is there
That's
anything
a
else?
great place to start with the report and a demo or trial request. We have both options available, and we definitely welcome having a conversation with our team to help you understand what your current maturity status is and where you need to focus in terms of next steps to ensure that you can truly be cyber resilient.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here, Joy. Look forward to having you back sometime in the future. And with that, I'm going to let you go.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Joy, thank you so much. Truly a pleasure. Definitely had a lot of fun picking your brain. Again, lots of questions coming in today. So if your question was not answered or not pitched to Joy, it's not because it wasn't a great question. We simply just don't have the time to reach everything today. And do not fret. Of course, Commvault will follow up after today's presentation, making sure you get all the information you are looking for. And to kind of coincide with that, we also have the poll up there. So if you are looking for some additional information from Commvault, data sheets, white papers, case studies, pricing, etc., definitely just click on in and request what you're looking for. Again, this is kind of your wish list, your easy button. They'll be able to hand you exactly what you're looking for, exactly when you'll want it after today's megacast. We do have the entire slide deck in PDF in the handouts tab today. So if you like that presentation, if you want to revisit some of the information that was presented, or if you didn't get a chance to scan those QR codes, perhaps you want to send that to somebody on your team for consideration and take a look. It is in there handy for you. So definitely grab that. The report is great, of course. And, who wouldn't want to take a demo and run through that? Okay, so I'm going to leave that up for just a couple more seconds, and then our next team is going to be out here to present with us. Very excited. The other thing I want to mention is prizes are coming through. So if you are excited, you're looking to win a prize, get your ears perked up because we've got a few more prizes to give away here. So again, reminder, you do need to be live and present here at the MegaCast to win. But otherwise, let's give those out. Drum roll on your desk or wherever you are. Our fourth $300 Amazon gift card is going out to Amy Patton from Minnesota. Our Power Beats Pro, another set, are going out to Tyler Asher from Texas, and another set of Power Beats Pro to Richard Terrell from Virginia. Huge congrats to all three of you there. And as usual, we'll be reaching out after today's megacast to let you know how you can claim those prizes. And with that, let's keep things moving along. We have got the team from Druva next on the queue, and we have got Neil Ashworth. He is from Druva, the Senior Solutions Architect, Security AME. So super excited. And why don't we just kick it over to you? Neil, take it away.
Hello and welcome to this megacast, brought to you by the great folks over at Actual Tech on ransomware, best practices for prevention, mitigation and recovery. I'm Neil Ashworth. I'm the Senior Solutions Architect for Security at Druva, and I'm going to attempt to provide my top 3 tips on ransomware resilience basics over the course of this webinar. Now, a brief word on who we are over here at Druva. Well, Druva is the world's first fully SaaS data protection solution, launched in 2008. There are many companies who are now attempting this same transition to a cloud-based architecture to offer data security as a service like we have. It makes sense as it lends itself to so many benefits, such as being able to develop a very secure product, since we're operating an application using API service calls and collapsed networks and serverless architecture, and able to consume capabilities like microsegmentation and use extensive monitoring and alerting, all the while adopting the very latest of best practices around application security design and development. It's faster, it's more secure, and it creates a much better experience. And the customer receives the added benefit of not being responsible for maintaining the security of this environment, since the vendor, in this case Druva, maintains all of the necessary patching and security updates of all of the services being consumed without impacting the customer experience. It also allows for unparalleled deployment speed, with customers able to begin protecting enterprise workloads such as SaaS apps like Microsoft 365, Google Workspace and Salesforce, or native public cloud services from AWS or Azure, or physical data center workloads and edge endpoints, all of them able to be onboarded and workloads protected within minutes, not days, weeks or months. So Druva is in the business of data protection in what we call the Data Security Cloud, meaning that for the purposes of this webinar, I'll likely focus my top 3 tips on mitigation, response and recovery of ransomware, as my personal suggestions around prevention would be limited to tips you've likely already considered or are currently using. Tip number 1 can be best reduced to the old philosophical maxim of know thyself. Now, it's a very basic tip to state that you need full accounting of assets under management. It's often reflected as an early step in frameworks like PCI DSS or guides like the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, since you can't really protect what you don't know about. Applications and operating infrastructure now operate without a perimeter, meaning data now has many locations across this vast, heterogeneous architecture where it's either in use, in flight, or being stored. Knowing the flow of data throughout your environment is often a difficult task. But if we know that data backup is a critical component of data security strategy, we can look at consolidating capabilities and begin to achieve more with less. And with Druva, one unified platform enables the secure backup, management, and recovery of all of your data across the full IT stack. Data is quite literally the lifeblood of every organization. As such, it's the target of every attack. To disrupt, to discover, and to disclose sensitive data for the purposes of financial gain is the most prevalent method of cybercrime seen today. Attacks are now simpler and cheaper to execute and more effective to launch than ever before, and data has never had more value. A decade or so back, availability risks caused by infrastructure and application downtime constituted the biggest risks to data. Therefore, the focus was primarily on building reliable tolerance to those systems. However, as cloud technology has evolved, infrastructure redundancy got built into the stack and availability risks have become less and less of a challenge, while the data layer now needs additional dedicated focus. With an ever-increasing volume of ransomware attacks and greater sophistication, cyber risks have become the major concern for data integrity. And the tactics have evolved to target not just the production data, but also the backup copies, since they're often the last line of defense when a business is compromised. The impact of data exfiltration and exposure, not just by bad actors but by malicious insiders, have become more prevalent and an area of more significance, since the exposure of company secrets can impact an organization from minor embarrassment to irreparable harm to the brand identity. Expanding compliance regulations and standards have created new requirements for businesses to assure and to prove the accuracy and correctness of data. And so businesses now need to verifiably ensure the safe and responsible handling of data, including collection, storage, processing, and sharing of that data across the entire data lifecycle. And this introduces a new set of process risks facing data. All of these evolving risk vectors and requirements have made it necessary for organizations to protect data, not just from availability risks, but also from loss, leakage, and any impact to fidelity. Where many customers are pleasantly surprised is that with SaaS data protection solutions like Druva, we have capabilities to help monitor for sensitive data types, such as those that require special GDPR sovereignty rules, or data containing possible PHI or PAI information like credit card numbers and social security details. These templates can then be used to highlight in the dashboard and via alerts instances of detection of such sensitive data breaches, with audit trails available for governance and forensic analysis. With Druva's sensitive data governance, we're empowering organizations with enhanced visibility, consistent policy enforcement, and proactive risk mitigation to help navigate data governance confidently. The solution helps organizations monitor, track, and notify users of data compliance risks. Tip number 2 is trust but verify. By this, I mean to regularly test recovery systems, processes, procedures, and technologies. When we have a ransomware incident, we're faced with a decision process that goes something like this. We begin by evaluating our recovery options. This involves bringing in the incident response team, trying to run analysis on the systems we have access to, and most importantly, validating the recoverability of data and systems. How long this process takes after we've identified that we're in a significant ransomware incident often dictates a huge amount of importance. You see, an organization's downtime is the most costly factor to a business experience a malware attack. It's not even close to any other factor which contributes to fiscal impact. So determining your ability to recover clean data quickly makes all the difference, with an emphasis on the importance of recovering clean data. In parallel to this process, we'd like to have a team negotiate the ransom demands, which involves bringing in an expert, starting negotiations, and validating decryption keys. At which point, both options are discussed with legal, insurance, and law enforcement before deciding on the best strategy of whether to pay or not, and how that process of recovery and cleanup will roll out. So we at Druva know these processes and workflows because we go through them often. With a business that supports thousands of customers in 20 global regions, we're no stranger to cyber incident response. Here is an anonymized example customer who was made aware of a compromise in their Active Directory account at 8 p.m. on a Friday back in late 2023. They also identified a malicious payload on neighboring systems and confirmed the incident internally. By 23 minutes past midnight, the attacker successfully compromised the backup environment of Druva using credentials stolen from Active Directory and attempted deleting the backups of user mailboxes, OneDrive folders, and SharePoint sites. Druva support teams spotted the anomalous activity by 1 a.m. and then contacted the customer to alert them of this activity. They in turn confirmed the breach and had not yet been made aware of the compromise of their backup environment and subsequent deletion of their backup data. Luckily, experienced Druva support staff helped initiate our rapid response playbook, which restored the backups from deletion, removed the compromised administration account, and provided access back to the customer team. After they resolved the incident internally, with the help of information gleaned by Druva logs, a cyber recovery was initiated that resulted in the restoration of over 2,700 user mailboxes, endpoint devices, and several SharePoint sites. So to summarize tip number 2 of trust but verify, I mean to say that knowing you have protection and testing that solution under stress is a necessary component to real ransomware resilience. We can be assured of every protection available to us with each new tool we adopt, but testing recovery in the chaotic environment that ensues after you've lost communications and access to your systems is another matter entirely. It really helps to have experienced support in your darkest hour. Monitoring the backup environment itself provides valuable insights and alerts that can lead to much earlier detection of a threat. With Druva's managed data detection and response, it's effectively a fully managed service designed to enhance your organization's security posture by integrating a 24/7 advanced security monitoring and threat detection capability across your backup environment. And my final tip, number 3, is fish where the fish are. According to a Sophos report from this year, 94% of organizations that had been hit by ransomware said that cybercriminals targeted their backups, and of those, 57% were successful. A secondary tidbit of information to note here is that ransomware recovery costs are 8 times higher when backups are compromised. So, to elaborate on what I mean by fish where the fish are, the phrase means to focus on where you're going to get considerable value. And we've already established over the course of this presentation that data is crucially important, since it's both a source for unique detection capabilities as well as the principal target of ransomware attacks. Maintaining a secure, air-gapped data protection solution is at the foundation of data security. This foundation provides key insights to help with detection, response, and recovery of threats that manage to escape the perimeter, guarded by these security tools. It also acts as the last line of defense by securely saving the clean data that's needed for recovery after a cyber attack. Layering on this foundation of secure data protection are Druva's cyber response and recovery capabilities. Still centered on data security as the principal benefit, these capabilities play a key role in cyber incident response and remediation. By using critical insights from the protected data to complement security insights from your existing toolsets like EDR, XDR, network detection tools, and SIEM, we're able to build a full view of the gestation timeline and impact of the cyber attack. We're able to hunt for threats to your data by using data insights. So you're not having to be reliant on simple endpoint detection, network detection, and SIM tools, which predominantly focus on process rather than changes to the data itself. Cyber recovery is one of the most overlooked but essential elements of robust cyber resilience and needs to ensure clean recovery, but with the least amount of data loss, with built-in mechanisms to reduce the risk of reinfection. Druva provides a prioritized view of data risks across backup snapshots, enhancing the detection and response to threats, including data exfiltration, backup data deletion, insider threats, and ransomware activity. Sensitive data governance, as we've already called out in tip 1, helps businesses improve their data security posture. It provides a centralized dashboard to discover sensitive data with a simple federated view, enabling quick access and tracking of all of the compliance violations. In an area of stringent regulatory requirements and increased scrutiny, Druva's proactive approach for governance, risk, and compliance is essential for maintaining trust and meeting legal obligations. I've been Neil Ashworth, and I'd like to thank you for your brief time and attention today. If you'd like to go into further detail of any area of the Druva Security Cloud that you've seen today, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I hope you have a fabulous day.
Alrighty. I'm having a fabulous day, Neil, so this is great. Thanks for the presentation. We've got a number of questions here to pitch to you, so I'm going to be picking your brain. But I do have a poll up, so anyone who's already interested in a little bit of additional information from Druva about the Druva solution, feel free to answer that. And with that, Neil, let's take it away here. Are you ready for some questions?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I hear you now.
Awesome.
Okay, so first question I've got is from Holden. Holden is asking, how does Druva's cloud-native architecture support continuous data protection and rapid recovery in the face of emerging threats? And what best practices can you recommend for leveraging your platform, aka Druva, to enhance both proactive mitigation and post-incident recovery efforts?
Wow, that's a question. Yeah, that is a question, isn't it? So the first part of the question was, what does Druva do to, could you please repeat?
Yeah, so what's the cloud native architecture supporting continuous data protection and rapid recovery? So that's kind of part one. Yeah. And then part two would be how should they best leverage the platform in this case?
Well, the continuous data protection is achieved depending on the workload, really, specifically. If it's something like a file server, it's agent-based. If we're talking about, say, a VMware cluster or a Nutanix HV cluster, then there'll be a proxy that's able to orchestrate the backups. And as from the recovery standpoint, it effectively works the same in reverse. And as we outlined in the presentation, a cyber incident recovery differs quite considerably from that of a standard one, where we're not particularly concerned necessarily with very stringent RTOs. We have to ensure initially that the data is clean before we can recover. And since we operate in the cloud and we're able to kind of recover to sandbox environments, we're able to provide that same semblance of a clean room type of environment that many competitors offer, since we're entirely operating in the cloud. So the speed to restore is predicated on your ability to identify clean data, which we have tools in our platform to assist with that, namely the curated recovery capability that we have, where we're able to identify the last known good clean file in a file system. And that supports workloads such as endpoints and file servers, SaaS applications like SharePoint and OneDrive, and it escapes me, sort of virtual machines hosted on VMware. So that answers the first part of the question. Sorry, the second part of the question was just
essentially how should they best leverage the platform to kind of carry this out proactively and post-incident?
Yeah, I mean, post-incident, really, I believe that real value can be gained by security professionals beginning to consume the alerts that are generated with backup tools. Now, obviously, I'm going to continue to recommend the use of Druva, but it works for every backup solution that you're going to leverage. You see, backup data has very keen insight into data level insights, which things like encryption or deletion, even exfiltration of sensitive data, if we can leverage the in-sync agent that's used on endpoints. So yeah, using the Druva Data Security Cloud almost offers additional benefits, since you're actually getting a real air-gapped solution where you don't necessarily, if you don't trust your primary environment, you can trust in the fact that your data is secured in an offsite area. So hopefully that answers the question. If not, then I'm very happy to continue the conversation after the fact.
Perfect. Thank you. But no, I think that sounds like a pretty good answer for the time we've got today. Next question I've got is from Brad. He's asking, does Druva offer any MDM or mobile device management for mobile devices?
It does. It supports both Android and Mac OSs, and I think, isn't there like a bare bones Linux OS that you can use on mobile phones. Anyway, it supports all MDM solutions. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I've got a question here. Is the backup data secured with multi-factor authentication?
It is, yeah. I consider that a fairly standard method of authentication based on SaaS applications these days. We support the use of single sign-on using an identity provider that you may be using, like Okta or ADFS or something like that, maybe even Entra ID. We also support native multi-factor authentication, where we can send the token to your mobile device in order to confirm you are who you say you are, and as well as role-based access control, where you can more distinctly define roles within the platform, such as maybe you have a backup administrator who's only responsible for SaaS applications. You're allowed to create those types of roles in the platform.
Excellent. Yeah, and as you were alluding to, I guess like all of that can be configured based on the organization's needs and architecture and how one role fits in. Perfect.
Yeah.
So a couple questions I've got here are asking about kind of on-prem support and if there's a way to do that. If companies are already on-prem or hybrid, can they work with Druva? And if so, how would you suggest that?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, we support every enterprise workload available. So if you're running SQL databases, Oracle, SAP HANA, if you're running virtual machines on ESXi or AHV hardware, and even Hyper-V, we support the backup of on-prem data center technologies, as I mentioned earlier, through the use of agents and proxies. And so, yeah, we have a lot of enterprise-sized customers that are using Druva for both endpoint protection, data centers, and SaaS applications.
Awesome. Great. So it's highly versatile then.
Very versatile. Yes, we've been in the game for a while now, so we support a very large myriad of different workloads and applications.
Perfect. Okay, another question I've got. Okay, so one is asking kind of here about how quickly can files or data be accessed if there's been malicious encryption due to a ransomware attack. I think that's circumstantial, but I'm going to pitch that.
Yeah, it's somewhat circumstantial. So it's obviously reliant on your backup schedule. So updates to the platform occur in near real time. So if you've taken a backup, and one of the unique characteristics of the Druva Security Cloud is that it's after the initial snapshot, it's forever incremental after that. So we're measuring any delta between the most recent snap versus the older. And measured against a baseline of activity over time, we're able to alert of anomalous activity using our security events page, which the capability we call unusual data activity, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to alert for you any data activity that may be suspicious, such as mass deletions or file creations or modifications, and even encryption events. And so after that snap has been taken, after that backup has occurred, that information is available in the dashboard. Also, you could just consume that in your SIM that you're maybe using already. We have applications for Sumo Logic and Splunk, so we don't even need to disrupt your existing operational security workflow. But yeah, it's as soon as you've taken that snapshot and that backup has completed, then data is available for you in the dashboard.
Okay, excellent. And then maybe one final question here, and then we might hit time. Omar's wondering if Druva has an SLA for recovery points. I'm not sure what SLA is in this in referring to here. Service level agreement.
Service level agreement for recovery points. I would rephrase the. I hate Omar. Apologies. I wouldn't want to rephrase your question. That's a difficult one for me to answer as the security SME, but I will say that we back our data resiliency with a $10 million guarantee. whereby there are, I think, I'd have to dig out the actual data on it, but there are SLAs around our data resiliency guarantee, which ensures that in the event even of a cyber incident or any type of incident, that your data is available to you. And in the absence of that availability, then we're backing it up with our own money.
Amazing. Put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. Yeah.
The old adage. Perfect. Well, we are about at time here. So any kind of final thoughts, any place you'd want to point the audience, call to action to leave us with?
Unfortunately, I didn't have a QR code. I should have prepared better for that. But yes, we host actually a regular fire drill training where we can help customers really walk through the processes of a cyber incident response. Now, we have one coming up in September. Hopefully, your partners or resellers or even just reaching out to somebody that you may know at Druva will be able to get you involved in that session. And it would give you an opportunity to learn more about how Druva can help you with ransomware resilience.
Awesome. Okay. So definitely check that out. I'm sure, yeah, if you've already been in contact with Druva, if you've got a contact there, or I assume the website as well, they can kind of reach out and get that conversation.
Or you can reach out directly to me. My email address is neil.ashworth@druva.com. Very straightforward.
Perfect. Alrighty. Well, Neil, absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Alrighty. Looking forward to the next time. Take good care.
Ta-da. Bye now.
Cheers. Alrighty. So great conversation there. Thank you everyone for those excellent questions. It was always a pleasure to be able to pick Neil's brain, get some information, and really kind of go a little bit deep dive on Druva. So if you haven't yet, I know I keep bringing this up, but the handouts tab, there is a link to their white paper, Accelerating Incident Response and Recovery with the Power of Data. So check that out if you are looking for some deeper information on Druva. And of course, thank you to everyone who filled out the poll. Tons of information requests there, and Druva will follow up on that. If we didn't hit your question today, again, just a matter of time. So thank you for having those questions coming in, and they can definitely follow up and flesh out some of that information with you after today's MegaCast. And with that, more prizes. We are on prize giveaway number 5 here. So our 5th gift card for $300 to Amazon is going out to Rod Kahl from Illinois, and another set of Power Beats Pros going out to Alex Peterson from Illinois as well. Illinois is the lucky state of the moment. And with that, we have one final team presenting in the house today. So we have got Rubrik next up on the docket. Nice, strong finale here. I'm sure if you've been on a couple of actual tech events in the past, you may have seen some info about Rubrik. But Rubrik has got some fresh info for you. We have Zoltan Diak in for this session, and Zoltan is the Director of Product Marketing. So super excited to have Zoltan here. Always a great time. And with that, I'm going to pass things over to Zoltan to deliver us the good message of Rubrik in terms of ransomware resilience. Take it away.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Zoltan Diak, and I focus on our security products and capabilities here at Rubrik. At its heart, ransomware is about encrypting data or locking up systems, and of course, holding those things hostage for a fee to unlock them. But there are different ways that attackers apply that concept to maximize their success and the return on their investment. And it's an investment. More and more, ransomware is a professional big business. These are professionals that go to work every day and innovate on new techniques to become more effective at their craft. They study what works and what doesn't, and come up with new ways to be successful. Today, I'm here to talk about some different ways we're seeing attackers innovate with ransomware to successfully compromise organizations. I'm not going to talk about specific ransomware types, but rather how attackers are putting those ransomware types into practice to gain leverage, target systems, and gain more effectiveness. After that, we'll talk about things you can do to maximize your success against these practices. But I'm not going to talk about prevention. I'm sure there are a lot of webinars you can attend that'll talk about the latest technologies and how they leverage machine learning and AI to detect and prevent new and unknown ransomware strains. And those are absolutely critical things to keep your organization safe. But we all know the fact is that while you need to be successful with prevention all the time, bad guys only need to be successful with an attack once. It's almost inevitable that you'll be hit by ransomware at some point. And there are things you can and should be doing to reduce your data exposure, reduce your risk of exfiltration, and enable yourself to recover more quickly and safely. What I'm talking about is cyber resilience, where even if you get hit, your business is still able to stand strong and move forward. So, assuming a breach will happen, I'll talk about some not so well-known sources of intelligence and tooling you should have in your backup systems already that can help you reduce your ransomware risk, minimize the impact if you do get hit, and recover faster and safer. All right? So with that, let's get to it. In the past year or so, we've seen 3 different ransomware approaches in particular really gaining momentum. Double or multiple extortion ransomware, ransomware targeting your hypervisors, and remote encryption ransomware. They're all ransomware, but they all leverage various wrinkles to get the job done. So let's talk about each of them. All right, so first let's talk about double extortion ransomware. The ransomware model itself is pretty well known, right? Where the bad guys find a way into your system, locate critical data or systems, and encrypt it, holding it hostage for a fee. With double extortion, attackers not only encrypt your data for ransom, but they take it a step further by also exfiltrating that data and then threatening to release it publicly, charging another ransom, the double extortion, to withhold it. This is, of course, requires the extra step on their part in being able to steal your data, get it out of your network. But as organizations have gotten better and better at preventing ransomware, this has become a great way for attackers to make money, especially given that there are ever-increasing regulatory requirements for keeping both sensitive and regulated data private. So by threatening to release it, they're putting even more pressure on organizations to pay the attackers the ransom they're demanding. In fact, late in 2023, we even saw a ransomware group report one of its victims to the SEC. So the attacker knew the victim was aware of the breach, but hadn't reported it yet. So by reporting the victim to the SEC, they're trying to put even more pressure on the victim to pay the ransom and face even more pain and regulatory fines. So if double extortion is about layering a second form of extracting a ransom on top of the first by adding data theft to data encryption, let's also talk about how attackers can target their attacks to do major damage. Now, it's no secret organizations are increasingly relying on virtualization. As critical infrastructure and business systems continue to be virtualized, threat actors have responded in kind by deploying ransomware that impacts hypervisor software. According to Rubrik Zero Labs, in 2022, 73% of all ransomware affected virtualization infrastructure. So virtualization, and as such, the use of hypervisors, is a key component of IT infrastructure for businesses of all sizes. So it represents a pretty attractive target for bad actors. These attacks can be particularly nasty as there's typically no ability to install EDR or antivirus at the hypervisor level. And if you're running VMs, you're probably monitoring your infrastructure using tools that run in a VM. So if the VMs running your monitoring stack are encrypted, chances are the first you find out about it is when you get to the office and everything is down. Even worse, if your data protection tooling relies on virtual machines and these are encrypted, it's going to be incredibly hard to recover your business. So while many people think about ransomware as mass encryption of data, it can in fact be very targeted to deliver the most damage and take out defenses and your ability to recover quickly. Attackers are especially good at being able to target systems that are underprotected. So let's talk about another way that they do this. Remote encryption attacks. Not new technology, but it's one that's evolved and really seems to be driven in large part by the increase in remote work over the past several years. Remote ransomware attacks happen when attackers use one compromised device to encrypt data on other devices on the same network. Doesn't sound that unusual, right? What's sneaky about this is that it can avoid triggering all of the targeted devices' security defenses, whether ingress analysis and blocking, payload execution, and encryption on the endpoint they've already compromised. So the newly targeted device just never sees it coming. So once attackers succeed in compromising a device, they can leverage that organization's domain architecture to encrypt data on managed domain joined machines. So all the malicious activity, ingress, payload execution, and encryption occurs on the already compromised machine and bypasses modern security stacks that way. The only indication of compromise is really the transmission of documents to and from other machines. So it's a good example of, yet again, attackers not bothering to break in, they're just logging in. The average number of devices used by employees to access their corporate networks is something like 2.5. So you have your corporate laptop, and maybe sometimes you're logging in using a personal laptop, maybe a tablet, something unmanaged by corporate IT. That means those devices generally don't have, again, any sort of EDR or XDR or other type of security solution. By compromising and running malware on this machine, an attacker can encrypt anything they can reach in the corporate network and still remain undetected. So according to Microsoft's 2023 Digital Defense Report, about 60% of ransomware attacks involve remote encryption. On top of that, about 80% of all compromises come from unmanaged devices. So just imagine your own corporate network where you might have thousands of devices connected. All it takes is one underprotected device to compromise an entire network. So cyber criminals really favor remote ransomware attacks because they're an easy way to scale. This scalability also makes these attacks dangerous to enterprises, right? That's because that single vulnerable endpoint jeopardizes an entire organization's network, even if all the other devices are protected by advanced security protections. So attackers are also not limited to specific ransomware variants. Many well-known families like WannaCry, Ryuk, and Lockbit all support remote encryption capabilities. Traditional endpoint security products often fail to spot and stop remote ransomware attacks because they're focused on detecting malicious files and processes on the protected endpoint. However, because that malicious process runs on the compromised machine in remote ransomware attacks, those security products, again, rendered ineffective in stopping the spread of encrypted network endpoints. So really kind of a clever, insidious way to attack. All right, so you're thinking to yourself, great, thanks for the information, Zoltan. Now, why is Rubrik, a data protection vendor, talking to me about this, other than to restore my backups if I get hit? Well, when it comes to ransomware and just about any other cyber attack for that matter, the target's your data, specifically your high-value sensitive data. And while it's not a source a lot of people think of first, what better place to understand your data so you can better secure it than your backup snapshots, which contain all your data? If you're using Rubrik as your data protection vendor, you have not only an immutable air-gapped backup as your ultimate insurance against ransomware, but you have the unique advantage of being able to access the intelligence within that data, organized and collated over time. We call it time series data. If you think about being able to view all your data over time, this offers insights that can inform you as to data risk that becomes critical during an attack. All right, so how do we practically apply this? How does this practically help you? First things first, we want to know and get alerted when there's an encryption event, right? It's a pretty good indicator of a ransomware attack. There are vendor solutions out there for things like anomaly detection, where they're going to scan all your files all the time. And as you can imagine, this just doesn't scale. It's going to take a week to scan your entire environment, and by the time it's done, your environment has already changed 1,000 times over. Rubrik scans your backup snapshots. So it happens offline. It's based off changes to what we see over time, not scanning your whole environment every time. You're not impacting production performance, but also in an attack, it's likely many of the tools you're using to detect and alert you to incidents are down. So Rubrik uses a dual machine learning model where it looks for a change rate. If it sees any difference in that change rate, it'll work out what changed. We're also looking at VM level attacks. So this is covering the modern encryption attack I mentioned earlier and the legacy in-guest encryption model. And of course, this can be plugged into your existing automation frameworks such as ServiceNow and SIM tools like Splunk or Microsoft Sentinel. If an attack has occurred, Rubrik automates the assessment of the blast radius to quickly understand what applications and files were impacted and when. So this eliminates the intensive manual labor required. So for example, bringing up a virtual machine copy, manual comparing and scrubbing for changes. Bottom line, in the event of an attack, you can quickly identify which applications, virtual machines, and files were impacted and where they're located. You minimize the time spent discovering what happened and the data loss with granular visibility into the latest unaffected files. Next, your highest value targets are your most sensitive and regulated data. You should absolutely be using your backup data for sensitive data discovery and classification. If you don't know what's in your environment, you cannot protect it. And on top of that, if data has been stolen, you're going to need to understand the blast radius. A lot of people might say they already have DLP, and that's going to stop data theft. And DLP is great for stopping an employee from stealing a spreadsheet, for example. But in a ransomware attack, it's a bit useless because the attacker already has an encrypted backdoor into your environment to steal things. So they're walking that data out. They're not sneaking it. Maybe you've already invested in some sort of data classification tools, and that's great. Why use your backup snapshots to do this instead? Usually, because of the cost and licensing, you're probably only focused on the top 20 to 40% of the sensitive data in your landscape. Using your backup data is the closest you're going to get to 100% visibility across your environment because it's scanning everything you're backing up. And by the way, because you're scanning your backup snapshots, you're not deploying and managing agents in a production environment. You're not sacrificing network performance and using valuable people resources. You're taking advantage of the intelligence that already exists offline in your backup snapshots. Sensitive data monitoring allows you to proactively mitigate your risk of data theft in the first place. Not just your on-prem data, but your unstructured data, your data in the cloud, your O365. With the right tooling in your enterprise backup, you can identify your critical data assets and their specific risks and remediate those risks before malicious actors can exploit them. And what's one way to mitigate that risk? Well, knowing where sensitive data is only half the battle. It's just as important to know who has access to that data and how risky that access is. Let's take an example. With Rubrik's user access capabilities, you can scan your backup snapshots and identify credit card data and say that data is high risk. Here are the specific users who have access to it and how that access has changed over time. So maybe yesterday they had access to this number of files, and today they have access to 10% more. And the risk level of those files they just gained access to is higher, lower, or right in the middle of where it was before. Again, this is all this analysis is run in your backup environment with no impact to production. What user access lets you know is who has access to sensitive data and a historical view of changes over time. If you think about it, every user who has access to sensitive data represents a risk. With the visibility I've described, you can proactively enact least privilege access to greatly reduce that risk. Again, this is intelligence and tooling you should have through your data protection vendor, like Rubrik, not another siloed, single functioning security tool. All right, so even after you've reduced your risk by identifying and safeguarding your sensitive data, we also want to always monitor for attacks on that data. Your network is a constantly shifting organism with new devices and assets coming online that may not always be fully protected. Threats get through, right? So by automatically scanning your backup data for threats, you have a last line of defense. Teams can perform in-depth threat analysis offline without requiring agents to be deployed. Once again, you'll notice the theme on critical infrastructure. So this better protects organizations against these lurking data threats. So Rubrik threat monitoring, for example, combines intelligence from third-party threat feeds with proprietary intelligence from Rubrik Zero Labs, which is our data threat intelligence unit, and Rubrik's own InfoSec team to automatically identify indicators of compromise within backup snapshots. Threat monitoring then proactively scans for threats out of band from production infrastructure based on that vetted threat intel, which accelerates investigation and reduces the risk of reinfection. The things I've just described are proactive measures you can take to reduce your overall risk level when it comes to ransomware and ultimately control your blast radius. Control the potential impact if and when you get hit. But what about when you're actually in it, when you realize you have been hit? In a ransomware event, you're going to need to understand as quickly as possible what your nearest clean recovery point is. It's critical to get this right to minimize the amount of data lost without reintroducing the attack into your environment. That same intelligence does a lot for you when you're trying to identify a clean recovery point to come back to. And Rubrik, to that end, offers built-in threat hunting. What that means is we can sweep for IOCs, specific IOCs, the malware, the remote access tools in your offline data. You can use Yara rules, files, hashes. With your team having to recover a single server, we can tell you a clean recovery point per server in your environment. Because you're scanning backups, we can show you not just where malware might live, but when it was presented into your environment. With traditional malware scanning, you're only scanning what's in production. But with Rubrik, because you have that time series data at your fingertips, that historical ledger of backups, you can find not only where it is, but exactly how long it's been there and when it was introduced. So you can decide exactly when you want to recover to safely. And that capability is available regardless of the state of your production infrastructure. So once again, right, in an attack, everything in your production systems may be down. You may be waiting for the go-ahead to recover, but it's that chicken and egg where you need recovery to happen in order to use the tools for security to give you the go-ahead. So by leveraging tools and backups, you can make all of those decisions, get the insight you need, get all the information you need offline. You don't need to get online to get that intelligence. Think about the value there in a situation where you've been hit by ransomware, right? You're trying to figure out what is under the control of the attacker versus what was encrypted. We're immediately going to clear that up and tell you these are the specific servers the attackers have persistence and control over. The other 99% of your environment, they're just victims, right? So it's not just speeding up your time to recovery point selection, it's also helping you reduce your data loss, because those compromised servers probably need to be recovered back, say, at least a week ago to where you need to just accept the data loss there, right? The other 99% just victims, right? So you can just recover back to yesterday because they don't have anything malicious in them. If you aren't using your backups to do this, you're just accepting greater data loss because you need to treat everything as malicious. Remember, the actual recovery time of your business isn't the time it takes to recover your data. It's the time it takes to scan the data, find the recovery point, then recover it. Using a threat hunting tool native to your backup is a huge game changer. All right, so what I've spoken about here today are some examples, just examples of how you can protect yourself against ransomware, regardless of the new or targeted techniques attackers are using. Detection and prevention capabilities are always going to be hugely important. We always want to discover and stop everything we possibly can. At the same time, we know attacks are going to get through, and it's critical to put ourselves in the best possible position to control the damage and recover quickly. The goal at the end of the day isn't to stop every attack. It's to make sure that those attacks don't significantly impact your business. By leveraging the intelligence and tooling you should already have in modern backup and recovery tools, you can proactively reduce your risk, reduce your exposure, and give yourself the ability to recover more quickly and safely so your business is resilient against the attacks that do hit you. So I hope I've shed some light on the powerful capabilities you can and should be leveraging in your data protection platform today. That's going to really help you accomplish those things. And I had time to just scratch the surface though, right? So Rubrik's a market leader in data protection, and it's the core of everything we do. But we've also seen how layering in these cyber posture and cyber recovery capabilities into the data protection platform gives our customers critical capabilities that enable them to achieve cyber resilience. So you can learn more about what we can do for you at Rubrik.com. And finally, just to wrap up, if you're interested in more about what's happening in today's data security landscape, I encourage you to check out the latest report from Rubrik Zero Labs. It's a quick read, a ton of insights into current data realities and real recommendations to secure that data for the future. All right. I hope this has been informative. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Zoltan. Great presentation and great way to wrap things up here on today's MegaCast. Definitely go check out that link in the handouts tab in order to measure your data risk. It's really really well designed page so you can flow through different metrics and help you assess your risk level. And I would definitely be checking that out. We are wrapping things up here on the MegaCast. Zoltan is taking off because we're at time, so no time for Q&A. But again, if you ask any questions today to any of our vendors and you didn't get an answer, do not worry. You will absolutely be able to get that information. And again, one final poll here if you're looking for some info about the Rubrik solution. Again, data sheets, white papers, case studies, pricing, demos, you name it. If you want it, just click there and they'll make sure that you get it in a timely manner. And with that, I have got a couple final prizes to give away here. So if you have been waiting patiently, hoping for a little bit of luck, hopefully you've got it. Again, you do need to be live and present here at the webinar to win. So our final gift card is going out to Jenny Roland Vlack from Missouri. We've got another set of Power Beats going out to Jim Sullivan from Arizona. And the 10th set going to Lee Kwarku from Oklahoma. And I'm just going to recap all of those winners today. So if you did miss it, you stepped away, you were on mute, you didn't notice, don't worry. So gift card here, the 6 of them are going out to Mark Nichols from Massachusetts, Brad Priller from Illinois, Bernard Brusk from Kansas, Amy Patton from Minnesota, Rod Kahl from Illinois, Jenny Roland Vlach from Missouri. And the 10 Power Beats are going out to Julie Viken from Minnesota, Edward Bird from West Virginia, Ryan Kramer from Montana, Rommel Regalado from California, Cameron Turner from Virginia, Tyler Asher from Texas, Richard Terrell from Virginia, Alex Peterson from Illinois, Jim Sullivan from Arizona, and Lee Kwarku from Oklahoma. And with that, if you're on today's webinar and you would like to chat about sponsoring and speaking on an event, MegaCast, EcoCast, or one of our upcoming virtual summits, well, we would absolutely love to hear from you. And you can reach out at email at, well, you can reach out by email at connect@actualtechmedia.com and chat with us there. Now, before you take off and take away, we would absolutely love to give a final thank you on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team to all of our speakers from SpyCloud, KnowBe4, Veeam, Commvault, Druva, and Rubrik for making this megacast possible. And as always, I want to give a big special thanks to all of you for attending, asking some really great questions, bringing up the engagement around this conversation. This has been such a fun day, and I know that with ransomware, best practices, prevention, mitigation, recovery, yes, it can be exciting, but also it can be stressful to forecast, think ahead, plan ahead, and embrace this change. So I'm glad you took that time from your busy schedules today, spent it on the MegaCast doing just that, and I hope you have all gotten some interesting ideas and tips. I hope you feel a bit more informed or equipped to tackle and implement some of these opportunities at your organization. And most of all, I hope you had some fun with me today. Now, before you do take off, you may want to mark your calendars for an upcoming EcoCast. This is about transforming IT in healthcare environments. So if you happen to be coming from an IT background, a healthcare background, or you do IT support for healthcare environments, definitely worth checking out. That is next week, Tuesday, August 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern or 9 a.m. Pacific. And with that, I believe that's everything. So I hope you all had a fabulous time. I hope to see you again soon. And until then, I am wishing you an absolutely magical rest of your days. Take care, everybody.